Hey guys, tonight we drift back across the Pacific, long before alarm clocks or TikTok feeds, into an ocean so wide and so empty that your sense of direction becomes as flimsy as a beach umbrella in a hurricane. The stars are still burning above, the horizon is just starting to blush with the faintest hint of light, and everything feels both eternal and slightly intimidating. Honestly, you probably wouldn't survive here, unless you've got a secret stash of coconuts and the ability to paddle for several thousand miles without complaining. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, tell me in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is right now. I like imagining the web of glowing dots we all are, scattered across the globe like stars over this ocean. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan, for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first thing you notice out here, drifting on the Pacific before dawn, is the sound of water folding in on itself, a kind of endless applause that never grows tired. You lie on the surface in your mind, weightless, suspended between the dark dome of stars above and the dark belly of the ocean below. The air is cool and damp, brushing your skin like the breath of something ancient, and every ripple seems to carry a secret. You'd expect silence, but no. It's alive with tiny noises, a splash from some restless fish, the whisper of wind skipping across the waves, the creak of a canoe's wooden ribs as it rocks. Your eyes wander to the horizon, and it's not quite light yet. It's that dreamy time when the world holds its breath, when everything pauses between night and morning. The sky is painted with smudges of violet and deep blue, and there's this single streak of pale green that reminds you of those energy drink cans in the fridge. You know, the ones that promise infinite stamina, but mostly just taste like carbonated regret. The Polynesian navigators who once sailed these waters didn't have the luxury of caffeine shots. Instead, they had stars, winds, and instincts honed sharper than any GPS app could ever manage. And here's a neat historical anchor for you. Around 1000 CE, Polynesian voyagers were already moving between islands, separated by hundreds, sometimes thousands of miles of ocean. They used star maps memorized in their minds, patterns of bird flight, and even the subtle color shifts of the water to guide them. Imagine committing your Google Maps to memory, deleting the app, and still arriving at your cousin's house 3 towns over, without missing a turn. That was their normal. And yes, historians still debate exactly how they first reached places like Hawaii and New Zealand, but the consensus is they were basically the rock stars of ocean navigation. The air grows warmer as the sky begins to lighten. You feel the subtle shift in temperature as the stars fade one by one like tiny candles being snuffed out. The Milky Way dissolves, leaving just the memory of its silver spill. In that quiet, you hear the slap of a paddle entering water, slow and deliberate. Picture a canoe, long, narrow, with an outrigger balancing it against the waves. Inside sits a navigator, his face calm, eyes lifted to where the last stars still burn low. He hums under his breath, a tune so simple it's almost not a tune, more like the rhythm of breathing itself. You smell salt, yes, but also something else. The faint, sharp scent of taro root packed in the canoe's hold, wrapped in woven mats. You imagine coconut husks drying in the sun, smoke from a fire still clinging to the fibers, and there's a sweetness in the air too, drifting from islands you can't yet see, where blossoms open just before dawn. It's like the whole ocean conspires to feed your senses, a buffet of smell, sound, sight, and touch. If you were actually in this canoe, though, you'd probably panic. No phone signal, no snack bar, no emergency exit row, just endless water stretching in every direction. The navigator, on the other hand, is cool as a cucumber, or more accurately, cool as a breadfruit chilled in morning dew. He knows exactly where he is. He knows because he's memorized not just the sky above, but also the swells beneath him. Yes, swells. Because here's the unusual fact of the night. Polynesian navigators could feel long ocean swells traveling for hundreds of miles, bouncing off distant islands like invisible sonar. By lying flat in their canoes, they could sense the tiniest shifts in wave rhythm. Think of it like surfing blindfolded and still sticking the landing. That's the kind of skill we're talking about. The sun teases the horizon now, not fully, committed yet, but sending faint gold strokes across the water. The ocean turns from black to indigo, then to that soft, slippery silver blue that makes you want to just stare and forget you're supposed to be rowing. The canoe glides forward, and you feel the rhythm of it in your bones. Paddle, lift, drip, glide. Paddle, lift, drip, glide. It's hypnotic, the kind of sound loop you could imagine on one of those 10-hour ASMR videos, relaxing paddling sounds for study and sleep. Your mind wanders, as it often does when you're this relaxed. You picture yourself as the navigator, sitting cross-legged, chest steady, eyes scanning the horizon. You try to mimic the calm, the trust in ancient methods. But then your imagination cheats. You can't help but slip in a mental image of your smartwatch buzzing with a reminder to stand up and move. And here's the cosmic joke. These voyagers didn't need steps counted or rings closed. Their whole existence was movement. Their whole survival was direction. And yet, they weren't always serious. The tricksters of these islands, those playful spirits and humans with a knack for mischief, rode along in the stories told during nights like this. Around the canoe's firelit gatherings, laughter echoed just as loudly as chants. You sense it here too, hidden in the rhythm of the waves. The idea that even in the most serious voyages there was room for a joke, a prank, a sly grin. After all, how else do you survive endless miles of water without a little humor? It's like a really long road trip. Someone has to crack the jokes even if they're bad. The horizon now begins to glow for real. It's not subtle anymore, it's an announcement. Gold unfurls, pink bleeds into orange, and suddenly the ocean looks less like a void and more like a mirror. You blink, and the world feels brand new. The navigator stops humming and looks east. You feel that hush in your chest, that moment when the first line of sun pushes up, breaking the water's edge. The warmth hits your face almost immediately, and the sea shifts again, becoming liquid fire for a brief, dazzling heartbeat. You could almost forget that, historically, these dawns witnessed migrations that changed the map of human settlement forever. One of the great moments in history, the settling of Easter Island or Rapa Nui sometime between 800 and 1200 CE, began with mornings just like this. Imagine the courage it took, leaving one island behind, sailing toward nothing but open ocean, trusting you'd eventually find another speck of land. It's like quitting your job with no backup plan. Except instead of unemployment, the consequence could be drifting into oblivion. Still, they managed it, carving giant stone statues, moai, that would one day puzzle outsiders for centuries. And yes, this all started with quiet sunrises, gentle paddling, and a confidence in things most of us can't even imagine trusting. The warmth spreads, and you lean back into it, letting the sound of waves soften into a lullaby. The stars are gone now, replaced by the endless stretch of blue sky. Birds appear, their wings flashing white as they skim low over the water, calling to each other in sharp, piercing cries. The navigator notices, of course, birds mean land, birds mean hope. For you, though, they're just a nice reminder that not everything out here is fish and waves. The canoe glides on, steady as a heartbeat. You close your eyes and imagine the swell cradling you, rising and falling, rising and falling. The trickster's laughter seems to echo faintly, hidden in the hush of the surf, promising that even in the seriousness of history, there's always room for play. And with the sun now fully risen, the stage feels ready for the next part of the journey, where the islands themselves begin to stir awake beneath the morning light. The sky grows warmer as the canoe glides forward, and now, at last, the first smudge of land appears on the horizon. You catch it almost by accident, the way you might notice a notification out of the corner of your eye. Small, easy to ignore, but persistent. It's a darker patch against the line of morning, a bump rising from the water where there should only be light. You blink once, twice, and there it is, an island waiting. At first it feels shy. The ocean still claims most of your vision, endless in every direction, and the island is barely a suggestion. But as the sun edges higher, colors sharpen. The outline becomes more definite, and suddenly you're watching the birth of a place. Palms stretch upward, their fronds trembling like green feathers in the breeze. Rocks glisten where waves break, white foam curling around them like lace on dark stone. The scent of salt sharpens, mixing with something new. Warm soil, living roots, the faint sweetness of flowers daring to open in early light. The navigator doesn't gasp or cheer. He only nods, as though the sight confirms what he already knew. You lean forward, impatient, wanting to get there, but he whispers something under his breath, almost like a joke shared with the sea. "See, I told you." You imagine replying, "Sure, but it looked like we were about to star in a survival documentary." And his quiet smile answers without words. The closer you drift, the more the island stirs. Birds wheel above the canopy, their cries sharp and jubilant. You hear wings beating like sudden applause. On shore, the first stirrings of human life appear. Smoke trails spiraling upward from a cluster of huts. A rooster crowing so defiantly, you'd think he invented mornings. The air itself changes. It carries warmth now, thickening as the day grows. The cool dampness of night evaporates, leaving behind that sticky, sunlit heaviness you know so well if you've ever stepped off a plane in the tropics and thought, "Oh wow, I'm soup now." The villagers begin their day. You can hear faint voices floating across the water, mingling with the chatter of birds. Women bend by the shoreline, rinsing gourds in the tide. Men emerge from huts with nets slung across shoulders, their laughter breaking the calm. Children chase one another, splashing in the shallows, their shrieks high-pitched enough to remind you of your neighbor's car alarm, the one that always goes off at 3 a.m. with no explanation. The island is alive, and so are you. You notice details, the smell of smoked fish curling from clay ovens, mingling with the earthy fragrance of taro leaves steaming in underground pits. The rhythmic thump of a pestle pounding breadfruit echoes like a slow drumbeat. Chickens scratch in the sand, their feathers catching the light while dogs lounge lazily in the shade, tails twitching in their half-sleep. The whole village seems to be stirring in concert with the sun, each sound and scent layering until it's like an orchestra, tuning before a concert. You whisper to yourself, half in awe, "This place. It's like watching the world hit play." After a long pause, someone nearby hears. A fisherman on the beach cups his hands around his mouth and shouts back, "And what were you expecting?" Silence forever. His grin is audible even from a distance. You can't help but laugh because, honestly, he's right. The canoe nudges closer, and now you see carved wooden poles planted along the shore, their surfaces etched with patterns that spiral and weave. They aren't just decoration. They mark identity, lineage, stories written without paper. You run your fingers along one in your imagination, tracing grooves smoothed by generations. The wood feels warm, alive, as though it remembers every hand that shaped it. And here's where history folds into the scene. By the 13th century, these same Polynesian communities were not only masters of navigation, but also of settlement. From Hawaii to New Zealand to Easter Island, vast stretches of ocean were bridged by these canoes, and the courage to leave one home for another. One of the most famous moments, Captain James Cook's arrival in Hawaii in 1778, sprang from a world where these island awakenings had already been happening for centuries. Cook arrived wide-eyed, jotting notes and sketching maps, while islanders were more like, "Oh, another canoe, just bigger and weirder looking." The irony of discovery is almost comedic, isn't it? But tucked beneath the big stories are the smaller, stranger ones. Did you know that some Polynesian islands use trained frigate birds as scouts? These seabirds could be released to find land, circling and pointing the way like feathery drones. Imagine sending your pet parrot out as a GPS system and actually trusting the results. That's the level of cleverness we're talking about. As the village shakes itself fully awake, you hear conversations drift across the air. "Did you hear the drums last night?" one woman asks, rinsing a gourd. "Yes, and my husband snored right through them," another replies, rolling her eyes. A child interrupts. "Mama, can I swim again?" "After chores," she says, but the laughter in her voice betrays her leniency. The whole exchange feels familiar, timeless, the same rhythms of bickering and laughter you'd overhear in any neighborhood, except here the backdrop is an ocean horizon and palm groves instead of traffic and grocery stores. The sun climbs higher and heat presses down on your shoulders. Sweat beads along your neck. and you're grateful for the faint breeze carrying across the water. The navigator still hasn't rushed. He seems to savor this slowness, this gradual approach. You realize that maybe the trick of these islands isn't just in finding them. It's in letting them reveal themselves one layer at a time, and yet not everything is clear. Historians still debate the exact timelines of settlement, which routes were taken, and how far Polynesian voyagers might have stretched beyond their known islands. Some theories suggest they reached the shores of South America long before European sails appeared. Others caution restraint, pointing to gaps in evidence. But in this moment, floating toward the island, you feel the possibility in your bones, the sense that boundaries never truly held back human curiosity. On shore, drums begin to beat low and steady. It's not a war call or a warning, it's rhythm pulsing like a heartbeat. The sound pulls you closer, each thump a tether. The people gather, some with garlands of flowers looped around their necks, others carrying baskets woven tight with pandanus leaves. Their smiles are wide, their gestures open. You feel both welcome and slightly self-conscious, like the new kid showing up at a neighborhood barbecue. The navigator murmurs beside you. "See, they're expecting us." "Really?" you ask, raising an eyebrow. He chuckles. "Well, not you exactly, but someone." The canoe bumps against the sand, and the people wade forward to steady it. Hands reach out, gripping edges, tugging you toward shore. The sand is warm, gritty under your feet, clinging between your toes like sugar grains. You inhale deeply, and it's overwhelming. The salt of the sea, the smoke of fires, the sweetness of flowers, the musk of earth freshly warmed by sun. The island has truly awakened, and in its pulse, you sense a stage being set. Something larger hums beneath the laughter, something ancient tucked into roots and rocks. And as the drums steady and the breeze carries frond shadows across your skin, you realize that the forest beyond the huts waits with secrets of its own. You step from the sand's bright edge into the soft shade of coconut palms, and the world around you seems to breathe in a slower rhythm than the splashy welcome at the shore. The laughter from the beach drifts behind you, muffled by the crunch of shells underfoot and the rustle of fronds high above. The air is thicker here, humid, earthy, with the faint bite of fermented fruit. A gecko skitters across the bark of a tree and pauses just long enough to give you that classic side-eye look, as if to say, "Yeah, newcomer, don't trip on the roots." And speaking of roots, you almost do, catching your sandal on a twisting tangle that rises like a knobby ankle from the soil. Someone chuckles nearby. You turn, and a boy maybe 10 years old crouches with a spear taller than himself. "Watch your step," he grins. "Thanks," you mutter, brushing off your dignity like it's just sand stuck to your knee. "First time walking?" he teases, before darting off into the undergrowth. That's the thing about first steps in a new place. You always feel like the comic relief in somebody else's story. The forest closes in with sound. Cicadas grind out their endless chorus, joined by the throaty calls of pigeons that sound a little too much like laughter. Sunlight slices through gaps in the canopy, spotlighting clouds of drifting gnats that look suspiciously like glitter gone feral. You brush one away and immediately regret inhaling another, apparently glitter bites. There's a scent here you can't quite name, part damp moss, part wood smoke, and maybe a little overripe guava. It clings to your clothes the way popcorn smell clings to a movie theater, and you realize there's no escape. You're going home wearing island number 5. A drumbeat starts up deeper in the trees, slower than the greeting on the shore. Each beat hangs in the air like a dropped pebble rippling water. You follow the sound because, let's be honest, if this were a horror movie, you'd already be making the wrong decision. The path curves into a clearing where a figure waits. He's older, with hair threaded silver, skin lined by sun, and eyes that sparkle as if they know something you don't. Which, spoiler, he does. He wears a woven belt hung with small carved figures, birds, turtles, sharks, a trickster lizard whose grin looks oddly familiar after your gecko encounter. He raises a hand in greeting. "You've come far," he says, in a voice both warm and sharp like fire on a chilly morning. You answer with the only safe traveler's line, "I'm just passing through." "Everyone says that," he replies, chuckling. He steps closer, tapping one of the little carvings on his belt. Do you know the stories these carry? You shake your head, half eager, half wary. Then listen carefully. First steps always matter. The drumbeat continues behind him, now matched by voices chanting in low unison. The rhythm isn't random, it's patterned, looping, the kind of thing your brain tries to turn into a catchy tune. Give it 5 minutes and you'll be humming it like an annoying jingle. Imagine an ancient version of a pop earworm. Only this one's meant to call spirits, not sell you soda. He gestures for you to sit. You lower yourself onto a log that's seen better centuries, feeling the damp moss kiss your clothes. The moment. You settle. A small child toddles out of nowhere, holding a carved wooden mask with eyes too wide and a grin too crooked. The elder takes it, presses it into your hands and says, "This is Maui's smile. You will need it." Now, if you've ever read up on Polynesian legends, or at least skimmed a Wikipedia page at 3 a.m., you know Maui is the ultimate trickster. He's the one who slowed down the sun, who fished up whole islands, who basically redefined overachiever with an attitude. In Hawaiian tradition, Maui once lassoed the sun with a rope made of coconut fiber, demanding it walk slower across the sky so days would be longer. Talk about extreme daylight savings time, and unlike your modern clock shift, nobody complained about losing an hour of sleep. But here's a lesser-known fact. Some versions tell of Maui being rejected at first, awkward, underestimated, even ridiculed for messing up early attempts. Basically, before he was the legendary hero, he was the guy tripping on roots just like you did 10 minutes ago. Historians still debate whether these stories reflect an older oral tradition of failure as a necessary first step, or if later storytellers added the flaws to make him more relatable. Either way, it means even demigods had their clumsy moments as you study the mask. Its crooked smile almost seems to widen. You blink, shake your head, and chalk it up to heat stroke, or maybe too much guava air freshener. The elder's eyes glint knowingly. "You see?" he says. "See what?" you reply. "That smiles are dangerous," he answers. There's a ripple of laughter from behind the trees, and when you glance back you catch sight of figures half hidden in foliage, some masked, some painted, all watching. One coughs dramatically, another whispers too loudly. He looks confused. And you can't help muttering, "Yeah, thanks for the live commentary, guys." The elder raises his hand and the voice is quiet. First steps are never yours alone. Tricksters walk with you, test you, trip you, sometimes even lift you. They remind you that the ground is never as steady as it looks. The mask is heavier now, or maybe you're just sweating under its stare. You set it down beside you and notice the carving marks, tiny grooves cut by stone tools, each one a patient act of shaping. It hits you. Before this was a story, it was someone's workday, someone's calloused hand carving wood while children laughed nearby. The line between myth and daily life blurs like salt spray on glass. The air shifts, cooler, damp, as a cloud slides across the sun. Drums fade, replaced by the creak of branches and the soft drop of water from leaves. You glance at your hands, and for a moment, the faint spiral designs carved into the mask seem echoed in the whorls of your skin. Coincidence? Maybe. But this island seems allergic to coincidence. A bird shrieks overhead, so sharp it makes you flinch. You look up just in time to see a frigate bird swoop low, its wings slicing the air. Someone nearby jokes, "Don't worry, it's not delivering messages today." The crowd chuckles and you join in, relieved to be reminded that even in sacred moments, humor never takes a holiday. The elder speaks again, his tone gentler. "Do you know why Maui's first steps matter?" You shake your head. Because without them, without mistakes, without falls, there would be no steps worth remembering. You sit in silence, the weight of his words pressing in like the humid air, sticky and unavoidable. Around you, the watchers shift, their masks catching, stray beams of light, their smiles curving in ways you're not sure are friendly or mischievous, maybe both. A child giggles, breaking the tension. The elder smiles too, not crooked like the mask, but warmly, and pats your shoulder. Walk carefully. The forest remembers. As you rise to your feet, the clearing seems subtly changed. Paths, branching where you swore there was only one. Each looks equally inviting, equally risky. The elder doesn't point the way. Tricksters wouldn't approve. So you pick a direction, heart thudding like a distant drum, aware that whatever waits will test not just your steps, but the stories you're willing to carry. The forest swallows you again, and somewhere ahead, laughter ripples like a promise you're not sure you want kept. The path you choose narrows into something less like a road and more like a suggestion, pressed into damp soil by bare feet long before you got here. You hear your own breath louder than you'd like, sticky, shallow, as if the air itself resists being swallowed. A mosquito makes a kamikaze dive at your ear, and you swat it away only for another to buzz smugly at your ankle. Nature's version of customer service, always available, never welcome. The forest grows warmer as you move. Not just summer warm, but sauna without an exit warm. Your shirt clings like it's been personally insulted by humidity. Somewhere ahead, your stomach gives a small, embarrassed growl. Perfect timing. Because if there's one thing that never hides as well as tricksters, it's hunger. You smell it before you see it. A drift of wood smoke, sharp but softened by something sweet. Banana leaves crisping over fire, maybe, or coconut flesh toasting, until it smells dangerously close to dessert. A second wave follows, fermented taro, tangy and thick like yogurt that got too confident. You wince, then laugh quietly, because this is exactly the kind of smell that divides a crowd. Half the villagers probably crave it. The other half might be politely holding back gags. A low whistle cuts through the air. "You hear that?" a voice asks from the trees. "I hear my stomach," you answer. A man steps out, grinning wide. His hands are dark with soot, his chest painted in swirling red lines. He's carrying a bundle wrapped in leaves, steam escaping through the folds. Then you're listening well. Your stomach rumbles again, this time louder, and the man bursts out laughing. "It speaks clearly," he says. "Maybe hungrier than you are." He gestures for you to follow, and the path leads into another clearing. This one centered not on masks or drums, but on ovens dug into the ground. Earth ovens, umu, imu, lovo. The names change across islands, but the concept remains. Pits lined with hot stones, filled with meat, roots, and leaves, then covered and left to steam for hours. Third's the ancient Polynesian slow cooker. You think about how modern folks brag about leaving a crock pot on all day while they're at work. And here, centuries earlier, entire villages already perfected the art. Smoke curls in lazy spirals, lifting the scent of pork and fish so rich it's almost visible. Children dart between the pits, giggling, waving palm fans that do little more than stir the smell into new corners of the clearing. Your mouth waters, and your stomach makes its opinion very clear again. "Careful," the soot-marked man says, handing you a piece of roasted breadfruit wrapped in leaf. "Food tests you too." You bite, the outer skin crackling under your teeth before the inside floods your tongue with soft, nutty warmth. It's comforting, filling, and slightly sticky, like a sweet potato and fresh bread had a baby and then rolled it in sunshine. He watches your expression. "Good?" You nod, too busy chewing to answer. "First time?" "Yeah," you manage around the mouthful. "Then don't eat too fast." The forest has ways of teaching greedy bellies. You chuckle, though a small part of you wonders if that was a warning or a joke. With tricksters, it's often both. The crowd here is more casual than the masked, gathering earlier. Women unwrap steaming bundles, revealing taro roots the size of your arm. Men scoop glowing stones aside with long wooden sticks. A dog hovers hopefully at the edge, ears perked every time a scrap falls. You swear you see the dog roll its eyes when a child beats it to a dropped fish skin, proof that eye-rolling transcends species. One elder begins speaking, his voice carrying over the smoke. He tells of voyages across oceans where food was more precious than stars. You picture double-hulled canoes cutting across endless blue, every coconut and dried fish counted like treasure. The elder mentions Captain Cook, yes, the very one whose name pops up in your high school textbooks, landing in Hawaii in 1778, greeted at first with gifts of food and feasts, only for tension to later boil over into violence. Food was never just about filling bellies. It was about respect, survival, and the fragile ties between strangers. Then comes the unusual detail. The elder describes how voyagers sometimes carried fermented breadfruit sealed in pits for years, a mushy, sour paste that could keep a canoe crew alive, even when storms dragged them far from any island. Imagine willingly eating something that smells like gym socks, just to see another sunrise. And yet lives were saved by it. Historians still debate whether this preservation method spread from one culture outward or was independently discovered on multiple islands. As the elder speaks, you glance at the steaming ovens. Suddenly, the feast looks less like a casual lunch and more like a living memory, a ritual that ties today's laughter to centuries of hunger, voyages, and survival. Eat, the soot-marked man urges again, handing you a piece of roasted pork, glistening with fat. You hesitate, then accept, biting into meat that's smoky, tender, and so juicy it almost drips down your wrist. Your body answers with the kind of sigh usually reserved for warm blankets on cold nights. Someone nearby calls, "Save some for the spirits." You pause mid-bite. "Wait, what spirits?" The crowd laughs, but a woman replies, "The ones listening. Food is never just ours." "Oh," you say slowly, chewing more carefully, as if ghosts are grading your table manners. A group of children begins a chant, rhythmic and playful, circling the ovens while carrying small baskets of fruit. One trips, spilling bananas into the ash, and the others collapse into giggles. The fallen bananas sizzle on the hot stones, releasing a sugary smoke so sweet it makes you cough. One child shouts, "Now they belong to the spirits." Another answers, "No, they're mine," before snatching one up anyway. Everyone laughs again, because apparently the line between sacred and snack time is thinner than a banana peel. Your eyes catch a movement beyond the ovens, shadows slipping between trunks, too tall to be children. The crooked smiles of masks reappear, half hidden, watching again. Tricksters don't vanish. They just change seating arrangements. You sense their laughter woven into the feast, reminding you that hunger isn't only about food. The soot-marked man leans closer, his breath carrying smoke and salt. "Do you hear it?" You tilt your head. Beyond the crackle of fire and the clatter of voices, you catch something fainter, a low hum, almost like chanting carried on the wind. It trembles in your bones, tugging at your appetite in ways food doesn't. "What is it?" you ask. "The hunger that never ends," he says softly. "Stories, power, memory." You swallow hard, suddenly aware that your stomach isn't the only thing that can be fed here. The feast winds on, with laughter and smoke thick enough to blur the line between dream and waking. Your belly is warm, your skin sticky with sweat and grease, but your mind is sharper, unsettled. The crowd eats, jokes, argues cheerfully over who got the best cut of pork, while somewhere in the trees, unseen eyes watch you like you're the main course. The soot-marked man pats your shoulder. "Enjoy it. Every hunger has its turn," and just like that, the drums return, distant, insistent, pulling you toward another path, one that smells not of food, but of something sharper, stranger, and harder to name. The drums you hear aren't polite background music. They're the kind that rearrange your heartbeat without asking permission. They ripple through the forest like water spilling downhill, dragging you with them. You follow the rhythm, your skin still sticky from fire smoke and pork grease, your stomach full but strangely restless, as though something just under your ribs is still empty. The path pulls you out of the smoky clearing and into shadows that shimmer, as if the trees themselves are exhaling. It's cooler here, mercifully so, but the air hums with a thickness that clings to your arms like damp cloth. You step on fallen guava, its sweetness squishing under your heel, and the smell rises sharp and sugary, making you grimace. Somewhere close, laughter flickers, quick, slippery, like stones skipped across water. You can't see who it belongs to, but it bounces off trunks and leaves until you feel surrounded by jokes you're not in on. A boy leaps out in front of you, his grin flashing white in the dimness. He wears no mask this time, only a crown of woven leaves tilted rakishly over one ear. He raises a hand dramatically. "Stop!" You raise both palms, smiling despite yourself. "Am I in trouble?" "Not yet," he says, and then adds, "But You're too clean. You glance down at your sweat-streaked arms, your dirtied feet. Clean? He nods gravely. Yes, clean of tricks. And that's a problem? Of course, everyone needs a trick. Otherwise you're just food. That's comforting. Nothing like being told you're one bad joke away from becoming someone's dinner. He circles you, inspecting you the way kids inspect new toys. Curious, critical, ready to see how easy you are to break. Tell me, he asks, can you pull the sun closer? You blink. No. Can you slow down the moon? Also no. He sighs. At least can you make coconuts fall on someone's head when they're not looking? You shake your head again. Then you need help, he concludes, his grin returning. Good news. Help is exactly what I sell. You raise an eyebrow. Sell? What's the price? The boy shrugs. Laughter. Maybe one secret. Maybe both. Behind him, more children emerge, carrying sticks, shells, and woven mats. They set them down with the ceremonial gravity of priests, though one immediately starts giggling when a stick rolls the wrong way. The scene is equal parts ritual and recess. You crouch, trying to match their energy. So what happens if I don't buy your help? The boy tilts his head. Then you stay clean and clean things get washed away. He claps twice, and suddenly the children swarm the mats, arranging shells into spirals, stacking sticks into tiny towers, dropping pebbles into patterns you can't yet read. It looks like nonsense, but then again, so do chess pieces until you know the rules. The boy sits across from you. This is how ideas are born, he explains. Not in silence, not in order, but in mess. Watch. He flicks a shell, and it skitters across the mat, knocking down a stick tower. The children gasp as if he just performed a miracle. You raise an eyebrow. That's it? He smirks. No, that's the beginning. You lean closer. The pattern changes again. Shells rearranged into shapes that look suspiciously like fish, then like a canoe, then like something climbing a tree. It clicks slowly, like watching a magician reveal the trick only after you've given up guessing. This is how Maui began, the boy says, his voice slipping into something older, steadier, almost too big for his small frame. One idea, a trick so bold it almost broke him, to steal fire, to catch the sun, to fish up islands. His eyes glint. But ideas don't stay in stories, they like to walk. The mats blur in your vision. Maybe it's the smoke still in your eyes, maybe it's the drums throbbing from far away, but the shells and sticks suddenly look alive, twitching into new shapes on their own. You blink hard. The children laugh again, and this time you're not sure whether they're laughing at the game or at you. A sudden gust rattles the canopy overhead, shaking loose a rain of dry leaves that patter onto the mats. One lands squarely on your knee. You brush it away, but not before noticing a faint carved spiral etched into the surface. Accident? Maybe? Trick? Definitely. The boy notices your stare. See? Even the leaves play. You exhale, trying to ground yourself. The smell of guava still lingers, mixed now with damp earth and the faint metallic tang of stone after rain. Your ears catch the drip of water somewhere to the left, steady and slow, a counterbeat to the drums. The air tastes of sap, resin, and faint smoke, layers upon layers like flavors stacked in a complicated dish. And then the boy says it, what if hunger isn't for food? What if it's for mischief? It's such a simple line that you almost laugh, but something about the way he says it makes you hesitate, because suddenly you realize, yes, your stomach is full, but something sharper gnaws at you. The hunger to meddle, to test, to bend rules until they squeak. It's the same hunger that once made voyagers set sail into a blank horizon, trusting birds and waves more than reason. The boy claps again, and the children scatter, vanishing into the trees like smoke through cracks. You're left with him, the mats, and the faint impression of ideas lingering in the air like heat. You're ready now, he says. For what, you ask? To make trouble. His smile is wide, mischievous, and far too knowing for his years. The forest seems to lean closer, listening. Somewhere above, a bird shrieks once, then falls silent. The drums shift tempo, quicker, now like the thrum of a heartbeat about to sprint. The boy rises, offering you a hand. His palm is small, calloused, and warm. Come, trouble doesn't wait. And as you stand, still blinking at the patterns of shells and spirals burned into your sight, you understand. Mischief isn't random. It's deliberate. It's an idea first, then an action, and you're already caught in its net. The boy doesn't let go of your hand right away. His palm is surprisingly warm, even as the air around you cools with the deepening canopy. The path is less of a path and more of an argument between roots and mud, each step daring you to trip. You don't, but only because your other hand shoots out like you're balancing on a subway train that's braking too suddenly. The trees arch closer above, their crowns knitting a ceiling of leaves that turns the world green. The kind of green you'd only get if someone dunked the sky in seaweed soup. The drums follow you. They don't fade with distance, they bend. One moment they're far behind, thudding like a lazy heartbeat. The next they're pressed against your ear, loud as headphones left on maximum volume. The boy notices your twitch and grins as if he's sharing a secret with the forest itself. They like you, he says, not bothering to explain who they are. You breathe in and the air is thick with damp earth, resin, and the faint sweetness of guava crushed underfoot. A tang of iron cuts through, like a penny you once bit. As a kid, pretending to test its authenticity. Except here the penny is in the soil, in the moss, in the veins of the land itself. Do you hear them? The boy asks. Hear who? You whisper back. The trees. They're gossiping. It sounds ridiculous, but the rustle overhead really does feel like leaves trading rumors. Not the big world-ending kind, but the small town stuff. Who's hoarding? Sunlight? Who leaned too close to the cliff, which branch thinks it's better than the others? The forest hums like a living cafe full of chatter, and you're suddenly the outsider who hasn't ordered yet. A shaft of light pierces the canopy, sharp and sudden, making dust motes look like suspended stars. Your skin prickles in the beam, warm and itchy, like the sun is deciding whether or not to keep you. Then it slides away and cool dampness replaces it, as if someone switched the forest's thermostat. Your steps sink deeper now, each foot squelching. The mud clings, unwilling, to let go like a clingy ex you thought you'd left behind. The boy doesn't mind. He skips, light as a thought, his leaf crown bobbing. He stops abruptly, crouches, and pokes at something with a stick. You peer closer and see it, a tiny crab scuttling sideways through the muck. Lost sailor, the E, boy declares. His canoe sank, you can't resist. Bet he didn't pay for the upgrade to waterproof. The boy chuckles like you've passed another test. The air grows denser the deeper you go. Every breath feels like drinking, thick with moisture and perfume. Somewhere nearby, blossoms spill sweetness, heavy enough to turn cloying, like walking, past someone who overdid their cologne before a date. And yet just beyond, there's the smell of rot, leaves collapsing into mulch, a banana skin melting into soil, the compost bin of nature. It shouldn't be pleasant, but it's grounding, as if the forest is reminding you it knows how to recycle better than humans ever will. A low call echoes, not quite bird, not quite human. It drags long, warbling, then cuts off. You glance at the boy, who shrugs. Sometimes the forest talks in voices it borrowed, which is fine until another call answers, higher pitched, closer, like a sibling mocking the first. Your spine tingles. The boy straightens. Don't look back, just walk. Of course you look back. And of course there's nothing, except the memory of something almost there, a shadow that melted the moment your eyes landed on it. The drums pick up again, faster now, matching your pulse, and layered over them, laughter, thin, sharp, darting, between trunks. You tell yourself it's just children from the feast earlier, except who would wander this far? And why does their laughter sound like it's running circles around you? You push forward, and the ground rises under your feet, less mud, more root. The forest grows crowded with tangled vines, some dangling, low enough to brush your cheek. One catches your hair. You pull free, but not before it tugs like a prankster yanking a ponytail. The boy doesn't stop. He leads you into a clearing where light pools like liquid gold. Ferns unfurl on the edges, and a stone stands in the middle, upright and smooth, as if someone carved it just to make you nervous. Moss coats its base, patterns snake across its face, spirals, fish hooks, wave lines. Some look deliberate, some accidental, but together they seem alive. The boy touches the stone with reverence, then looks at you. Do you know this place? You shake your head. Long ago, he begins, our people crossed the sea to find these islands. Not once, not by accident. Over and over. They read stars, felt waves through the hulls, knew the winds like family. This stone remembers. The story of Polynesian voyagers stirs in your mind. Their journeys across the Pacific, centuries before. Europeans even dared. You recall Captain Cook stumbling into the Pacific in the 18th century, wide-eyed like he'd just discovered a backyard already full of people who knew more about ocean science than he did. Historians still debate. You murmur, how such vast voyages were planned without compasses, without maps. The boy nods as if you've passed another test. They had maps, just not the kind you can fold. You imagine navigators tracing swells with their fingertips, memorizing star paths, turning the whole ocean into a chart. And here you are, someone who once got lost in a mall parking lot. You touch the stone too. It's cool, almost cold, and the spiral under your palm feels like it's shifting, pulsing faintly, as if the rock is breathing. The boy whispers, careful. Stones are good at keeping secrets, but sometimes they whisper them back. For a second, you think you hear it, a low thrum like the distant echo of waves, or maybe it's your stomach complaining again. Hard to tell. You step back, and the forest seems to lean closer, pressing in. The air trembles with the weight of waiting, then laughter erupts again, this time unmistakable. A girl's giggle, high and bright. From nowhere, a face pops out, painted, masked, with spirals drawn on cheeks. Another appears opposite. Soon, the clearing is alive with them. Children or not children, masks glowing faintly in the light. One steps forward and says, "Will you play?" The boy grins at you. Say yes. You swallow. What's the game? Catch, the child says, tossing something toward you. You catch it on instinct. It's warm, rough, round. A coconut, of course. The masked children scatter, laughter trailing into the trees, the coconut heavy in your hands. You turn it over, feel its weight, hear liquid slosh inside. It feels less like food, more like a key. The boy tilts his head. Now you carry it. Don't drop it, not once. You clutch it tighter, the forest suddenly watching you with a seriousness that wasn't there before. The drums soften, almost purring. The clearing dims, light pulling away, and just before it fades, you notice something. The stones spiral, glowing faintly, echoing the curve on the coconut's shell. You step forward, and the boy gestures deeper into the trees. The path knows where to go, and though your arms ache already, you follow, the weight of the coconut pulling you toward something you can't yet name, as shadows stretch long like guardians. The coconut digs into your arms as though it wants to sprout then and there, its hairy shell rough against your skin. The boy glances back every few steps, his leaf crown tilted like it's slowly sliding off but never quite falling. The forest deepens around you, shadows thick as velvet curtains muffling even your own breath. The air turns cool and sticky at once, like someone left the refrigerator door open in a tropical greenhouse. The drums fade, replaced by something subtler, whispers. At first, you think it's wind snagging leaves, but then you realize there is no wind, only the air's heavy stillness. The whispers twine together, layered voices overlapping in a language you don't know yet somehow almost understand. It's the same sensation as overhearing gossip in a cafe. You're certain it's juicy, but you're just one verb tense short of catching it. You stumble over a root, clutching the coconut tighter. The boy steadies you. Careful, he says, voice soft now. They watch how you hold it. Who, you ask? He points not with his hand, but with his chin, quick and subtle. Between the trunks, pale shapes flicker. They're not solid. They're not absent either. They move with the kind of authority reserved for people who never have to explain themselves. One of them leans closer to the light seeping through the canopy. Its face is long, carved with shadow, eyes like empty shells, the edges of its form ripple, as if it's undecided whether to be mist or flesh. You whisper, "Spirits?" The boy nods. The air cools sharply. Your skin goosebumps as if the forest just exhaled ice. A smell slides in, briny and sharp, like seawater left in a clay, pot until it turns sour. It mingles with the sweetness of blossoms still hanging overhead, a clash that prickles your throat. The first spirit doesn't speak, but you feel the weight of its gaze settle heavy on your arms. No, not on you, on the coconut. A second shape steps forward, its voice like leaves dragged across stone. Do you carry it willingly? You almost answer, but the boy squeezes your wrist, shaking his head. The spirit tilts its head. We know tricksters. We have seen them walk as men, as birds, as shadows. Do you carry his mischief now? You clear your throat. I just caught it. The boy pipes in, grinning, and hasn't dropped it yet. A murmur runs through the spirits like ripples in tall grass. You can't tell if they're amused or insulted. One figure shifts closer, the smell of smoke trailing it like an old memory. Another voice joins, deeper, vibrating in your chest. Do you know the price of holding such fruit? High potassium, you mutter before you can stop yourself. The boy smacks his forehead, but a faint chuckle escapes the spirit's echo. Humor apparently is still a valid currency here. The forest tightens around you, pressing sound from every angle. Insects buzz louder, a shrill violin section warming up at the wrong time. From somewhere far off, a nightbird calls, sharp as a flute note. The air tastes metallic again, like pennies soaked in salt water. The spirits circle. They don't touch the ground, they skim it, leaving no mark. One trails a long hand close to your shoulder, and the temperature plummets as if someone opened a freezer. You hug the coconut tighter. Why do you guard it? The spirit asks. Because he told me to, you admit, jerking your chin toward the boy. The spirit's hollow face turns to him. And why do you test this one? The boy shrugs. Because trouble needs company. The voices rustle again, like a storm debating whether to break. You remember stories, the ones the elder told near the ovens about voyages that crossed impossible seas. You think of another story too, one everyone knows. When Columbus stumbled into the Americas, mistaking land for India. He carried maps, compasses, arrogance. But here, Polynesians crossed thousands of miles in canoes without iron or sextants, guided by stars and memory. You picture their sails swelling like wings, their hulls cutting through waves as if the ocean was simply a road waiting. Historians still debate, you whisper, how much of that knowledge was guarded, hidden in chants and rituals, never shared with outsiders. A spirit turns toward you, and for the first time its hollow gaze feels approving, or at least less sharp. Secrets are how people survive, it says. The boy nods. And tricks. The coconut grows heavier. You swear. It vibrates faintly like a purring cat, or maybe like a ticking bomb. Your arms ache, but you don't dare adjust your grip. The spirits draw closer, until the clearing glows faintly with their gathered light. Mist curls low to the ground, licking at your ankles like cool smoke. One spirit leans in, whispering so. Close the sound slides against your ear. He turned once, you know. From man to tree, from hunger to fruit, from laughter to silence. Carry him well, or he will choose again, and you may not like the shape. You shiver. The coconut pulses once, unmistakably. The boy grins wider, almost proud. They've noticed you. That's supposed to make me feel better, you hiss. He shrugs. Could be worse. They could ignore you. Another chuckle ripples the spirits. The humor's thin, brittle, but it's there. The whispers swell again, building like surf against rocks. The spirits' forms waver, glow, blur. Then all at once they dissolve, drawn back into trunks, branches, mist like smoke inhaled by the forest itself. Silence returns, thick as a closed door. Only your breath remains, ragged and loud. The boy claps his hands once. Well, that went better than expected, you glare. Better? They basically threatened to treify me. He tilts his head, considering. Yes, but they didn't, which means you passed. You sigh. Your arms ache. The coconut feels like a bowling ball wrapped in hair. Somewhere ahead, a faint glow filters. Through the trees. Not the pale shimmer of spirits, but something warmer, steadier. Firelight, maybe. Or something pretending to be firelight. The boy gestures forward, leaf crown bobbing. Come on. The night isn't done testing you yet. You adjust your grip, coconut pressed tight, and step toward the glow, knowing each step takes you closer to the heart of whatever mischief waits in the next clearing. The glow ahead wobbles like a lantern held by someone whose arms have grown tired. You lean into it, the coconut clutched so tightly against your chest that your shirt sticks damp with sweat. The boy trots beside you, the crown of leaves on his, head now lopsided, one fern stalk poking sideways like a rebellious antenna. The drums that chased you this far have quieted, as though the forest has paused, waiting to see if you'll actually step into this light. The air smells faintly of salt, as if the sea is sneaking its breath through the trees, but also of wood char and faint sweetness, like sugarcane someone left too close to a flame. You step into a clearing where the glow reveals itself, not as fire, but as a cluster of stones rubbed slick with oil and smeared with red dye. Torches lean at odd angles, their smoke scribbling messages upward that no one pretends to read. The coconut feels heavier here, as if it knows what's coming. The boy points with a grin. You'll want to hold on tight now. Spirits love coconuts almost as much as kids do. A low hum rises from the stones. At first you think it's the wind sneaking through cracks, but no breeze stirs. The sound builds like voices practicing a song without agreeing on the tune. Shapes appear, half shadow, half suggestion, taller than before, with hair that moves, though the air lies still. One laughs suddenly, a burst sharp as a gull's cry. Another hisses, "What will you give for what you carry?" Your throat goes dry. The boy elbows you lightly, as if to remind you this is all a game. You croak, "Well, I've got excellent sources of potassium." The shapes pause. Then one exhales what might be a chuckle. The boy claps his hands like you've told the joke of the century. "See," he says, "even the old ones enjoy a snack of humor." The air cools. You feel goosebumps rise, though sweat still streaks your skin. The shadows press closer, circling the two of you like sharks deciding whether to bite. One whispers in your left ear, though no one stands there. Mischief has a price. Another answers from the right. Endurance too. Do you pay? Your stomach flips the way it might before a roller coaster drops, except there's no safety harness here, no guarantee of track beneath the wheels. "What exactly is the exchange rate?" you mumble. "1 coconut per eternal soul." The boy snorts so hard his leaf crown wobbles. "Careful, they might take you seriously." The stone in the center of the clearing glows faintly now, spirals, etched into it, catching the torchlight as if slicked with dew. You realize this is no casual meet and greet. This is a negotiation staged the way ancestors once sealed voyages and alliances. It reminds you of the treaties written after great wars, like the Treaty of Versailles after World War I, when leaders gathered around polished tables and carved signatures that would haunt generations. Big decisions always happen in rooms that feel too small, whether it's Paris 1919 or this clearing lined with moss and torch smoke. The shadows sway like they're considering your terms. Then from somewhere just behind you, a softer voice drifts. "Offer a promise. Promise binds stronger than rope." The boy leans close. "Better think carefully. Spirits have long memories, longer than your internet history." You swallow hard. "What do I promise?" "Something you can keep," he says. "Not like swearing you'll never eat dessert again. Everyone breaks that." The spirits murmur approval, their whispers like dry leaves shaken in a jar. You feel a sudden heat against your palms, the coconut warming as if it's alive, as if it waits for your answer. You close your eyes, the torch smoke stinging them anyway, and murmur, "I promise to carry mischief with care, not to waste it, not to hoard it, but to share it." Silence. Even the torches sputter more quietly. Then the laughter returns, not cruel but relieved, as if you've stumbled onto the right punchline after fumbling through the setup. The central stone flares brighter, then dims again, as though it has accepted your words. The boy nods. To mischief shared is mischief lived. The shadows unravel, peeling back toward the trees. But before they fade entirely, one voice lingers. Promises root deeper than footsteps. Break yours and the ground remembers. The chill of it lingers on your skin even after the whisper is gone. You exhale shakily. "Was that good?" The boy grins. "You're still standing." That's usually a win. The coconut, once searing, hot, has cooled again, but it feels different now. Not just heavy, but expectant, like an egg just before hatching. You half expect it to crack open in your arms with a snappy little surprise. Your eyes sting with torch smoke. The smell is thick, resinous, making you think of bonfires and half-burnt marshmallows. Overhead, the trees creak, though no wind moves them. You swear one branch leans a little closer, as if it wants to hear what bargain you just struck. The boy crouches, dragging a stick through dirt to sketch a spiral, like the one carved in the stone. This, he says, is your mark now. Spirits know it, trees know it, even the crabs will probably know it. You snort. The crabs, he shrugs, they gossip worse than humans. You rub your aching arms, wishing coconuts came with handles, like grocery bags. A rustle nearby makes you stiffen, but it's only a pig snuffling through leaves, eyeing you both with suspicion. It squeals when the boy wiggles his fingers and mutters something, bolting into the underbrush. See, he says smugly, even pigs respect bargains. The clearing feels lighter now, though still threaded with unease. You realize you've just performed a rite older than any written law, and yet absurdly it feels no different from shaking hands on a bet at school or clicking, "I agree" on some terms and conditions you didn't read. The contract is there, whether you understand it or not. A thought intrudes. Historians still debate whether promises and rituals like this were binding law, spiritual agreement, or elaborate theater to hold communities together. Maybe it was all three. Maybe that's the trick. Keep people guessing and they'll behave. The boy straightens, brushing dirt off his knees. It's sealed now. The coconut's yours to carry, unless... He squints at you with exaggerated suspicion. Unless you'd rather trade it for, say, one slightly used crown of leaves. You roll your eyes. Tempting, but no. He laughs, and the clearing echoes with it, bouncing between trees like rubber balls in a gymnasium. The coconut seems to hum faintly in response, as if amused. Maybe bargains really do smile back at you when you handle them right, but the humor thins when you notice the torches guttering, smoke drifting toward a darker path at the far side of the clearing. The glow you followed here now pulls you onward, and you feel in your bones that the next step won't be just another playful test. The boy notices your hesitation, tugs your wrist. Come on. Mischief doesn't wait, and neither does the sea. The coconut rests heavy in your arms again, patient, as if it knows the journey is only halfway written. You step toward the path, the last of the torch smoke curling behind you like a signature on the bargain you've just signed without pen or ink. And somewhere ahead, beneath the smell of salt and the hush of waves, another sound waits, a rhythm deeper and older than drums calling you closer to the shore. The smoke thins as you leave the clearing, and the boy's footsteps crunch just ahead of yours on a path that seems to slope always downward, as if gravity itself has already chosen the direction of your evening. The coconut in your arms is no lighter. If anything, it feels smug now, as though your vow gave it a personality, and that personality is leaning towards smirking roommate who eats the last slice of pizza. You glance down at it once, half expecting it to wink. Of course, it doesn't. But the heat radiating through its shell could fool you into thinking it's alive. A breeze nudges from the right, cool at first, but then growing sharp with the tang of brine, and you know even before the sound reaches your ears that the sea is close. The boy says nothing for a long while, his shoulders shifting like someone carrying a secret that's just too heavy to keep balanced. You don't push, after all, you've just bargained with whispering spirits, and it doesn't feel polite to demand explanations when you're still smelling like a resin-scented bonfire. Instead, you let the soundscape do the talking. Cicadas grinding out their relentless chorus, leaves clapping like gossiping neighbors, and further off, the unmistakable rhythm of waves slapping at stone. Each step forward carries the salt deeper, into your lungs until you're convinced you'll sneeze a pearl. Do you always bring strangers this way? You finally ask, and your voice comes out lighter than you meant it, airy like a balloon someone's letting go just to hear the funny squeak. Only the ones who can carry jokes, the boy says without turning. His answer is quick, but there's a smudge of pride in it, as if he's chosen wisely this time. And the ones who can lug around coconuts like gym equipment, you add, adjusting your grip. Exactly, he says, and now you catch the small, Laugh he didn't want to release, the kind you'd hear in a classroom when someone drops a pencil, but somehow makes it sound like a tuba. The ground beneath you turns sandy, the leaves above thinning into ragged silhouettes. And suddenly there's the horizon, darker than sky, softer than land, a line trembling with reflected moonlight. The ocean spreads out ahead, enormous and indifferent, like one of those cats on the internet that stare directly into the camera while knocking a glass off the table. It doesn't matter that you've just sealed a supernatural bargain. The waves keep rolling, splashing with the regularity of breath, unimpressed with your small drama. The first step onto the sand is always different from soil or stone. You sink slightly, feel grains tug between your toes, even if your shoes keep the details muffled. You hear it too, that faint hiss each footprint leaves behind, as if the earth itself is whispering that you won't be here long. The boy kneels by the waterline, cupping some in his hands, letting it run through his fingers. He doesn't drink, doesn't speak, just watches. The air thickens with salt and dampness, coating your lips like invisible sugar that went bad. You lift your face and breathe in, letting it sting. Behind you, a palm frond rattles against another, the sound hollow, almost like bones clicking. It's then you realize the clearing and the spirits felt close, like being in the middle of a crowd. Here, though, the openness feels stranger. The endless sweep of water makes you small, like a misplaced figurine on the wrong shelf. Feels bigger at night, you say softly. Day makes people forget, the boy answers. They think it's just water. At night it's a mouth. You pause, glance at him, half ready to laugh it off, but the solemn way he stares at the horizon anchors the words. You don't joke. Not yet. The waves rush in again, cool froth slipping close to your toes, and the coconut reacts, just a little, pulse of warmth, like holding a phone that's been overworked by too many videos. You frown, grip tighter. You felt that too, you murmur. The boy nods once. It knows where it belongs. And in that moment you understand. Shore isn't an ending here. It's a waiting room, the kind where you can hear magazines being flipped. Only the magazines are stars reflected in salt water, and the receptionist is probably a sea spirit with sharp teeth. It reminds you faintly of another time, long ago but recorded in history, when sailors reached beaches not their own. Think of 1492, the so-called discovery of the Americas, a meeting of waves and boots that rewrote entire continents. Except, unlike Columbus, you aren't holding flags and greed. You're holding a coconut that practically hums with its own. Inside joke. Still, the sensation is similar, stepping where land and sea argue who truly rules. A gust sprays salt onto your face and you lick it away. Tastes like potato chips without the potato. You want to laugh at the absurdity of it, but your voice stays low. Tell me again, you say, why this coconut doesn't just roll into the tide on its own. Because it chose you, the boy says, almost impatient, as though you should already know. You raise your eyebrows. Well, that's flattering. I've never been chosen by fruit before, not even at a buffet. His smile breaks then, quick and mischievous. Buffets don't bargain with spirits. The coconut warms again, this time a steady thrum, as though approving the exchange. You shake your head, wondering if your life is now officially a sitcom where the props have opinions. There's a silence after that, a deep one, not empty. Waves still roar, insects still grind, but deep like a pause carved out for meaning. You let it stretch, even as your arms ache. Finally, the boy shifts, brushing sand from his knees. We wait until the tide turns, he says. Which is when? Soon enough. That's not very specific, he shrugs. The ocean doesn't keep clocks, which is of course untrue. Tides keep the best clocks of all, you know it even as you smile at his line. Ancient sailors charted their courses by them, counting moons and hours, reading swells like mathematicians. Historians still debate which island cultures first mastered this reading most accurately, but all agree that Polynesians were remarkable navigators, charting thousands of miles without instruments long before Europeans admitted the possibility. That thought tucks itself beside you like a reassuring blanket. Humans have always made sense of waves. You shift the coconut to your other arm, flexing stiff fingers. You can almost hear it sigh with satisfaction at being moved, like someone swapping sides on a pillow. You know, you mutter. If this thing grows legs, I'm out. Not legs, the boy replies smoothly. Roots. And that does not make you feel better. You let your gaze wander instead, catching stars mirrored in black water, the line of palms curving away, the faint orange glow from torches you left behind. The night presses closer here, cool and sticky. But your body has already surrendered to it. Salt clings in your hair. Grains sneak inside your sandals. Air hums with insect wings. It's not comfort exactly, but it's honest. Like the difference between a lullaby sung by your grandmother and one sung by an app, you know which feels lived in. Minutes spool out. Waves gnash, pull back, gnash again. You count them like sheep, but each crash is louder than the last. The boy crouches again, drawing spirals in wet sand with his fingertip, the designs vanishing as foam rolls over them. You watch until your eyes blur, then blink, feeling something tug not just at the shore but at you. The coconut heats once more. You cradle it, whisper without meaning to. We're almost there, aren't we? The boy doesn't answer, but his grin flickers back, sly as moonlight skipping over water, and you know something waits just beyond the tides turning, and so you breathe deeper, adjust your grip once more, and listen, because the ocean's next word might be the one that changes everything. The tide waits for no one, or so you think. Yet as you stand there, coconut hugged like a suspiciously needy pet, the ocean seems to pause just long enough to notice you. The boy crouches nearby, drawing spirals in the sand with his finger, the wet lines glowing faintly before the waves erase them with a hiss like a bored librarian, shushing you for breathing too loud. You sniff salt heavy in the air, as if the sea has seasoned itself in preparation, and the warmth of the coconut seeps deeper into your arms, almost smug. It feels less like fruit and more like a guest of honor, which is unsettling, considering you weren't planning on catering tonight. Is this dinner? You mutter. The boy smirks, not looking up. Not dinner. Feast. Oh, great. Last time you heard the word feast used so casually, it involved a medieval banquet and at least one poor pigeon wrapped in pastry. If this coconut demands a crown and a throne, you're out. The air changes, cooler now, damp enough to bead on your skin. You hear the crack of driftwood snapping under invisible weight, and then faintly, laughter. Not human, not fully. It slides like foam along the shore, rolling in and out with the tide. A circle of torches flares to life, their flames crooked and uneven, as though each one has its own opinion about how to burn. Shadows rise and shrink across the sand, restless as dancers before music starts. The boy gestures toward the center, where a low table has appeared, fashioned from driftwood and woven mats. Upon it lie bowls carved from shell and stone, each one brimming with offerings. Roasted taro, sea urchins cracked open to reveal orange gold, slices of fish still glistening with seawater. The smell is sharp, briny sweet, like a seafood buffet that doesn't believe in portion control. Your stomach growls in treason. Don't, the boy says, as if reading your mind. What? I didn't even move. You thought about it. They can smell thoughts. Fantastic. So now you're at a feast where your brain is the appetizer. This night is going splendidly. The coconut warms further, pulsing once, twice, like a heartbeat syncing with yours. Around you, the air thickens with expectation. A gust sweeps across the torches, making them bow low but not extinguish. You hear footsteps, not one set but many, emerging from the edge of the waves. Figures step forward, tall, lean, their skin glistening like scales under moonlight. Their eyes glow faintly, sea glass green. They carry nets, not for fishing, but for binding. And every one of them stares at the coconut. One steps closer, voice smooth as water slipping over stone. The feast begins when the gift is given. You look down at the coconut. It feels heavier now, resistant, like a toddler refusing bedtime. I'm not sure it wants to be unshared. The figure tilts its head, unimpressed. Gifts don't decide, givers do. The boy clears his throat. Careful, they're touchy about rules. You glance at him. Thanks for the warning. Anything else I should know, like maybe an allergy list? They hate flattery, he whispers. And jokes about bananas. Good to know. You clutch the coconut tighter, sensing it hum against your chest, like a cat annoyed it has been removed from its sunbeam. The feast table beckons. You step forward, feeling sand crunch cold beneath your bare feet. The torches sputter in agreement, or impatience. At the edge of the table, you set the coconut down. Instantly, the air shifts. The sea people lean closer, nostrils flaring as though scenting something older than food. The boy, meanwhile, casually snags a slice of roasted taro because apparently he's immune to cosmic tension. You hear the waves beat heavier, dragging pebbles back and forth like dice in a cup. Then from behind another laugh swells. Deeper, fuller, unmistakably amused. Out from the surf waddles a man-sized figure draped in seaweed like robes, his teeth too many for his mouth, his grin stretching ear to ear. Trickster, the sea people murmur together, bowing their heads. The boy glances at you, eyes wide, then back to the newcomer. He wasn't supposed to come himself. Great. You're about to dine with the guy who probably invented the concept of fine print. The trickster sits at the head of the table, dripping seawater onto the mats. He waves a hand, and the dishes tremble. More food appears. Roasted breadfruit, yams glazed with honey, even what looks suspiciously like pizza, but with seaweed instead of cheese. You're both impressed and horrified. You bring me my child, the trickster says, nodding at the coconut. And you bring me your humor. I take both, you clear your throat. Sorry, what was that second thing? Your humor, he repeats, grin widening. It is the only spice I lack. You glance at the boy, who shrugs. Told you, feast. You think fast. If he takes your humor, you'll be stuck telling jokes like a malfunctioning chatbot. Unacceptable. What about a trade? You get a story instead. The trickster's eyes glimmer. Stories are fine, but a story without laughter is a canoe without water. You dig deep. Well, did you hear the one about the sailor who brought a coconut on board because it was the only crew member who wouldn't mutiny? A beat. Silence. Then the trickster laughs, booming, rolling like thunder, cracking across the waves. The sea people laugh too, though theirs is stranger, higher, like gulls fighting over scraps. The coconut hums hotter, nearly burning your palms. The trickster nods. A bargain, then. You keep your humor, I keep the fruit, and the feast remembers. Both. Relieved, you let go of the coconut. It rolls across the table, nestling into a carved hollow as if it had been waiting for this seat all along. The sea people murmur approval. The torches flare taller. The food glistens richer, scents filling the air, sweet, savory, salty, smoky. The feast begins. You're offered dishes, slippery octopus, crunchy seaweed, fish grilled until skin cracks. Like glass. You taste cautiously, flavors exploding like fireworks at a summer festival. The boy eats greedily, somehow juggling taro, fish, and something purple you don't want to identify. Between bites, you hear the trickster recount tales of sailors lost and found, of islands rising from storms, of laughter traded like currency. One story hits closer. He speaks of the Polynesian voyages, canoes crossing oceans wider than empires dared. He boasts of guiding stars, of swells like roads, of maps written not on paper, but in memory. You think of Magellan's circumnavigation, the first to stitch oceans into one map, and how centuries earlier, Polynesian navigators had already charted their own world with nothing but sky and wave. Historians still debate how much of that knowledge was preserved, borrowed, or lost, but sitting here, you realize it never vanished. It was simply hidden, waiting for feasts like this. The trickster leans in, whispering almost conspiratorially. Do you know the story of breadfruit's arrival? A chief dreamed of feeding his starving people, and the gods turned his own body into a tree. Roots, bark, fruit. His children ate, but he never stood again. That's a little heavy for dinner conversation. You nod politely, chewing seaweed like it's gum. The boy elbows you. Ask about dessert. You hesitate, but glance at the trickster. So, what's for dessert? He grins. Tomorrow. That's ominous. Very ominous. The feast stretches on. You lose track of dishes, of stories, of time itself. The torches never burn out. The waves never falter. And yet the horizon begins to glow faintly. a seam of silver where dawn prepares to stitch itself open. The trickster rises, robes dripping, teeth glinting. Feast is over. Bargain sealed. Tomorrow the sea will test you. Tonight laugh, for laughter is lighter than any raft. With that he slips back into the surf, vanishing like a dream too big to hold. The sea people follow, nets trailing, until only you, the boy, and the fading table remain. The boy wipes his mouth, sighing. Well, that went better than last time. Last time, you echo. He grins innocently. Don't worry about it. The torch is gutter, sand cooling beneath your feet. The food dissolves like smoke. You're left standing with only the sound of waves and the faint glow of dawn. Something tells you this was the last calm meal you'll get for a while, and as the tide creeps closer, you sense the next challenge rising. Not on land, but deep in the restless pull of the water itself. The feast dwindles the way all grand things do, not with a bang, but with the gradual fading of voices, the soft clatter of emptied bowls, the last hiss of fat dripping into flame before the fire shrinks to red coals. You linger at the edge of it, the sand cooling under your toes, the salt smoke taste still on your tongue, and the sense that you should be winding down even if your mind refuses. It's like being the last one awake at a sleepover, blinking in the glow of a cartoon marathon, except instead of friends drooling on beanbags, you've got sea people disappearing into waves, a trickster humming somewhere you can't see, and a coconut that snores, yes, actually snores beside you. The night is heavy with waiting. Crickets start a rhythm section, cicadas punch in backup vocals, and somewhere in the distance a dog, or maybe a seal that thinks it's a dog, lets out a yawning bark. The moon hangs lower now, silver stretched thin across the surface of the tide. You hear your own breath, steady but not steady enough, and you feel your skin prickle, as if the ocean breeze knows secrets it's not sharing. Still awake? The boy asks, his voice carrying from where he lies curled like driftwood a few feet away. Yeah, you whisper back, though whispering here feels silly. The trickster could probably hear you from the other side of the island. Can't sleep. You glance at the coconut. Not with this guy snoring. The boy chuckles, a sound like pebbles sliding down a dune. That means he's dreaming. Roots grow stronger in dreams. You wrinkle your nose. What, so I'm sleeping next to a gardening project? He doesn't answer right away. Instead, you hear him shift, sand scratching beneath him. Then, softer. Maybe you're the garden. Great. That's comforting. You're just casually fertilizer now. The air carries a sharper edge of salt as the tide pulls farther out, revealing wet rocks that glisten like polished obsidian. The smell is strong enough to sting the back of your throat, like sniffing the lid of a jar of seaweed snacks left too long in the sun. You breathe through it, the way you once pretended to enjoy the smell of your friend's ocean breeze car freshener that mostly smelled like wet socks. Somewhere behind you, the embers crackle, sparks jump and fall like tiny meteors. The trickster's laugh, low this time, almost a purr, slips into the space between waves. You can't see him, but you know he's there. You imagine him stretched across a rock, seaweed robe damp and clinging, grinning at the stars as if he wrote them himself. Tell me something, you murmur to the boy. Do these sea people ever sleep? He's quiet long enough that you think he's drifted off. Then, sleep is a human luxury. The sea doesn't stop moving. That's not creepy at all, you mutter. He laughs again, though this time, it's thin. Maybe that's why the trickster likes you. You still think rest is possible. The weight of that sits heavy. You roll onto your back, the sand molding around you, and stare up. The sky looks like someone spilled salt across velvet, messy, glittering, endless. You try to pick out constellations, though most are foreign here. A few you recognize, Orion's belt, faint but there, marching across the dark. You recall how sailors once navigated by stars, plotting whole empires on nothing more than points of light. The thought stirs something steady in you, a reminder that even in chaos, humans found patterns, lines, roots. Your mind drifts to history class, the one time you stayed awake because the teacher compared early Pacific navigation to using Google Maps without the Wi-Fi, satellites, or the actual map. Polynesian wayfinders read the stars, the waves, even the flight of birds to find islands scattered across an ocean that could swallow continents. They set out in canoes that would make a modern yacht look like a floating mall. And somehow, without GPS, they didn't get lost. Historians still debate just how precise their methods were, but the evidence of arrival speaks for itself. Footprints on sand, songs that trace routes longer than highways. You're thinking of them, aren't you? The boy says softly, as if he sees straight into the slideshow in your head. You grunt. Wayfinders, people who knew where they were going. Unlike me. Maybe you know more than you think. Yeah? You turn to squint at him. Because right now, all I know is that I'm lying on damp sand with a fruit that breathes like Darth Vader. The boy actually snorts, muffling it in his arm. The trickster laughs at you for that one. Glad I can keep him entertained. The night deepens. You hear the hush of waves folding over themselves, then dragging back slow as breath. Your skin grows clammy in the cool, damp air, goosebumps rising like tiny hills. The coconut rolls against your arm, heavy but warm, and you sigh. You can almost believe it is alive. Almost. A shadow passes across the stars. You blink, half expecting a bird, but it's no bird. The outline is canoe-shaped, long and curved, gliding silently. You sit up, heart thumping. But when you blink, again it's gone, leaving only stars. Did you see that? You hiss. The boy doesn't move. What? Nothing, probably just my imagination. Which is exactly what people in horror movies say before something eats them. Great. The embers crack again, louder, and for a moment you catch the trickster's voice, whispering a story not meant for you. You catch fragments, storms, wails, laughter like thunder, the kind of laughter that could tear sails and scatter fleets. You press your palms to the sand, grounding yourself in grit and dampness. The boy hums, a tune low and repetitive. It weaves into the night, something between a lullaby and a chant. You listen even as your mind wanders. You think of a historical night, famously quiet before it wasn't. The eve of D-Day, June 5th, 1944. Soldiers waiting in hushed barracks, seasick already on rocking boats, pretending to sleep though no one really did. A night stretched thin with anticipation. So still it seemed the ocean itself might snap. The world held its breath just as yours does now. You exhale slowly. The coconut shifts again. Are you ready? The boy whispers suddenly. You swallow. For what? For the part where the ocean answers. Your pulse ticks loud in your ears, louder than the waves, louder than the insects. The stars seem closer now, leaning down. The embers blink like eyes. The trickster's hum slides into the boy's tune until you can't tell who is singing, and yet you don't feel fear so much as inevitability. Like standing on the edge of a diving board, knowing the jump is coming whether or not you're ready. The coconut lets out one last rumbling snore. The tide sighs in. The night waits. And somewhere, in that waiting, you feel the first tug of the journey that will pull you beyond the shore. The first tug is gentle, so soft you could almost dismiss it as a trick of the tide. Or maybe that weird half-dream where your body suddenly jerks and you convince yourself it was falling. But the second tug is sharper. It takes the sand right from beneath your fingertips, pulls grit from your nails, drags the coconut an inch closer to the foaming edge. The night exhales, and it feels personal. You push yourself upright, shoulders chilled by air that's turned strangely metallic, as if the sea has been polishing coins just for you. The boy stirs, rubbing his face, hair wild like dried seagrass. The coconut lets out a wheeze that sounds far too close to a sigh of anticipation. You say, pointing at the tide. I think we're about to lose our beachfront property. The boy squints at the incoming water, then at you. It's time. Time for what? Swimming lessons? Transformation. Great, because nothing screams safe bedtime story like hearing the word transformation while babysitting a sentient. Fruit at midnight. The air thickens. You smell brine, damp wood, a faint sweetness like overripe guava. Salt coats your lips, and when you lick them, the taste burns. Sharper than normal seawater, almost medicinal. The stars above blur slightly, as if someone smeared their edges. With a thumb, the coconut shudders. You yank your hands back. Nope, not my problem. But the boy just tilts his head. He chose you. Didn't ask to be chosen. He shrugs, then says, "Neither did trees when the wind first touched them." Which is poetic, sure, but unhelpful when your soon-to-be plant buddy is vibrating like a washing machine stuck on spin cycle. The hum begins low, threading up from the sand itself, then rising in pitch. The trickster's laugh overlaps with it, echoing off invisible walls, making the air fizz in your ears. You smell smoke, though the fire pit is nothing but ash, and you see faint greenish light ripple through the tide like liquid emerald. The sea. Coconut cracks, a hairline fracture down its shell glowing faintly from within. "Hey, you say to the boy, is this, supposed to happen?" He doesn't flinch. "It always happens." "Always? As in, every Friday night, you guys gather here to watch fruit explode?" He almost smiles. Every era has its moment, this is his. The crack widens. A sliver of root pushes through, pale and curling. The coconut wheezes again, and if you didn't know better, you'd swear it whispered. Finally. You gag laugh. Did it just talk? The boy hushes you with a gesture, eyes fixed on the growing split. The light inside pulses brighter, throbbing in rhythm with the ocean's push. You back up a step, heels sinking in damp sand. The coconut swells, splitting further, until shell fragments tumble like discarded armor. Out pushes a thick sprout, slick and trembling. The sound it makes isn't subtle. It's halfway between celery snapping and a balloon rubbing against glass. You wince, stomach twisting, but you can't look away. The boy breathes reverently. Roots find their ground. Roots are finding my towel, you mutter, because of course you laid it down right where the sprout is thrashing. The transformation isn't quick. It stretches like the night wants you to feel every second. The sprout lengthens, leaves unfurling sharp and glossy, the shell crumbling further until it's more skeleton than fruit. Warmth radiates from it, not cozy warmth, but fever warmth, as if the plant itself burns with memory. You whisper, mostly to yourself, "It's alive." The boy glances at you. It always was. A shadow crosses your vision. You glance up. Canoe shape again, darker than the sky. It tilts, dips low, then vanishes. A trick of the eyes maybe, or maybe not. The trickster's voice curls around you, invisible lips brushing your ear. Do you see it now? Do you see him? You whirl, but no one's behind you. Just embers, just waves, just that too-wide grin. In your mind, the coconut. No, the sapling now, trembles, roots twisting deeper into sand. The ground pulses under your palms when you steady yourself. You hear water rushing beneath, as if the tide has tunneled under the beach just for this. History. Slips in uninvited. You remember reading about Mount Vesuvius 79 AD, when Pompeii sat unaware beneath a sleeping giant. People went to bed, cooked dinner, even argued about rent. Then fire and ash remade their world in hours. Transformation doesn't send a calendar invite. It arrives, it consumes, it stays. The boy speaks again, quiet. Every island begins with upheaval, he's not wrong. You think of volcanic rock, black and hot, thrust from the earth into new shapes. You think of Mauna Loa still stretching upward, higher than Everest if measured from its base beneath the sea. You think of how entire chains of islands are just old eruptions cooled and greened, pretending they've always been paradise. Historians still debate whether early settlers saw them as blessings or punishments. The sapling groans. Yes, groans, like a hinge on a rusted door. Leaves slap together in sudden breeze, though the night around you is still. The boy reaches, forward, palm brushing the trunk. You'll need to carry him soon, he says. You blink. Excuse me, carry him, he's a tree. He is a tree who remembers. That's not better. Your chest feels tight, as if the air itself has thickened. You draw a shaky breath, lungs working harder, heart thumping like a drum circle no one invited you to. The sapling shivers, then steadies, its trunk hardening, its leaves sighing. Dialogue slips from the dark again, this time Trickster's voice and someone else's, maybe the sea people, maybe your imagination. One becomes many, many become rooted. The bargain holds. You press your palms against your thighs, grounding yourself. The sand is damp, cold now, seeping chill straight into your bones. The boy moves closer. Will you see him through? See who through, you snap. The coconut, the sapling, the creepy choir in the background? All of them, he says simply. You groan. Yeah, sure. Add it to my to-do list, right between laundry and surviving the apocalypse. The boy doesn't laugh this time. He just looks at you steady, as if your sarcasm is a shield he sees straight through. The transformation slows, then stills. A sapling stands in the moonlight now, thin but unbent. Its leaves whispering, though the air is calm. It glows faintly. Nothing dramatic, just the kind of glow that could be chalked up to tired eyes. The trickster's laugh drifts one last time, faint as foam. Not yet finished, just begun. The sapling quiets. The tide pulls back. The hum dissolves. You exhale, shoulders slumping. For now it looks like just a tree. A magical, glowing ocean bargain tree, sure, but still a tree. The boy lies back again, watching the stars. Tomorrow it grows further. Fantastic, you mutter. Can't wait for the sequel, but you know better. The quiet isn't an ending. It's just the space before the next wave. You stand there on the damp shoreline, half expecting the sapling to apologize for interrupting your evening. But no, it just rustles its new leaves as though you're the rude one for staring. The boy crouches beside it, whispering like he's telling secrets to a celebrity. You clear your throat because really, what else do you do when a coconut has transformed into a glowing plant right in front of you? A sound hums low, not from the sea, but from under the sand itself. You feel it through your arches, like a phone, on silent vibrate, except instead of a message from your boss, it's the earth saying, yeah, something big is happening. The roots stretch downward, curling into the beach as though they're auditioning for a role in a horror movie. Each tendril glows faintly, fading as it dives deeper, leaving behind the faint smell of ozone and, strangely, freshly cut cucumbers. Don't ask. The tide licks closer, and for a moment you're sure the tree will be washed away. Instead, the roots anchor hard, like grappling hooks clinging to stone. The boy looks up. See, it's thirsty. Trees don't drink salt water. This one does. Great. Next, he'll tell you it prefers coconut milk. The air cools, your breath fogging in faint puffs, even though it isn't cold enough for that. The kind of chill that feels less meteorological and more like someone walking over your grave. Except, you know, you're alive. For now. A leaf flickers, catching moonlight like it's been polished. You hear something underneath the sand again. Not just vibration this time, but something like voices. Faint, like kids practicing a chorus in a faraway gymnasium. The tree isn't just rooting, it's connecting. And maybe this is when your over-caffeinated brain remembers history. You think of the Battle of Marathon, 490 BCE, when Persians charged across the plains only to be stopped by hoplites digging in their shields, roots of bronze holding ground. That same anchoring feeling sits here, defiance pressed into soil. Roots don't run, they spread. The boy presses his palm to the bark. Sparks dance between his skin and the trunk, tiny like summer fireflies. It remembers things, he says. Things like what? High school geometry? Because I failed that. Older. The leaves sway without wind, casting shifting shadows across your face. And then for just a second you see them, shadowy shapes beneath the sand. Not bones, not shells, tools. Stone blades, chipped pottery, spearheads dulled with time. Like the tree is rummaging through forgotten drawers beneath the beach. Historians. Still debate, you murmur without meaning to, whether memory is a thing that lives in stone or soil. The boy nods too knowingly for someone who can't legally rent a car. The ground softens beneath your toes. The sand isn't giving way. It's pulsing, like the earth is exhaling. You catch a whiff of smoke again, faint but real this time. The scent of burning pine resin. Once long ago, that same smell drifted from Etruscan shrines, those ancient neighbors of Rome who thought roots were not just plants, but literal veins feeding gods below. Odd, maybe, but right now it feels like they had a point. You crouch low. The roots don't look normal anymore. They twist in spirals, curling into symbols you almost recognize, halfway between cursive handwriting and the doodles you made in the margins of your history notebook. A language written downward, not across. You're not sure if you're supposed to read it or if it's reading you. The boy leans closer, eyes wide. You hear that? All I hear is the part of my brain begging me to run. He grins. Good. That means it's working. Suddenly the sand bucks and your balance tips. You grab at the sapling instinctively, bad move. A jolt snaps up your arm like you've touched an electric fence. Your ears ring. For half a heartbeat, you hear a chant layered ancient, the syllables too thick to belong to your tongue. Then it's gone. When you pull your hand back, it smells faintly of iron, as if you've been holding coins too long. You want to laugh it off, make another joke about beachfront horror shows, but the roots are still diving deeper. And the deeper they go, the more your stomach knots. There's an old saying, roots reach down, branches reach up. Which way do you belong? Overhead, the sky has shifted. The stars look lower, closer, like someone dimmed the ceiling lights for dramatic effect. The boy tilts his head. It's choosing its anchor point, he says. Anchor for what? He just shrugs, like he ordered this from a catalogue and the instructions didn't come in English. The sea whispers in again, foam hissing over the root's edges. The sapling shivers, and in that moment, you're certain it's not a plant at all. It's a message wrapped in green, digging its way into the bones of the earth. Somewhere beneath the sand, deeper than you can fathom, something stirs back. You stay there, crouched in the damp sand, as if someone forgot to hit pause on the night. The sapling you just watched anchor itself downward has clearly decided it's not satisfied with subtle root business. Now, with the moon fat as a lantern above, it begins to stretch upward. The trunk thickens, grain pressing out like muscle beneath bark, and for a strange moment you feel like you're watching someone take a deep breath after being underwater far too long. The sound is not what you expect. It's not polite little. Creaks like a rocking chair on Grandma's porch. No, it's a low, chesty groan, almost a wail note turned inside out. The air vibrates with it, and your ribs vibrate too. You whisper, well, that's comforting, but it comes out tighter than you meant. The boy beside you cups a hand to his ear, dramatic. Hear that? He says. You nod. Yeah, sounds like the world's worst cello recital. He grins, like you just passed a test you didn't study for. It means it's choosing its voice. The trunk rises another foot in less time than it takes you to decide whether this is cool or terrifying. The leaves above slap against one another with wet smacks, still glossy, still damp from their unnatural birth. Salt air threads around them, and for a second the tree smells like cucumbers left too long in a fridge, green and sharp, a little wrong. Then it changes again. The scent shifts toward ozone, like the moment right before lightning. You stretch your hand near the bark, but think better of touching it. The memory of being zapped earlier still lingers in your fingers, faintly metallic like you'd licked a penny. The tree gives a sudden shiver, and a strip of bark unfurls. Lines appear across its surface, looping and curling like calligraphy. No human hand has drawn. You lean closer. Symbols spiral upward, and the grain ripples like a drumhead struck from below. Don't stare too long, the boy warns. Why? Will it hypnotize me into becoming mulch? He shrugs. Maybe. Or maybe it'll just make you hear things, which of course makes you stare harder. And sure enough, you do hear something. At first, just a whisper, threads of language, stitched into the wind. Then clearer. Laughter, deep and round, the kind that fills a fire circle. The kind that makes you think of the trickster himself leaning back, teeth flashing like waves in moonlight. You close your eyes, and for a second, you're not sure whether you're looking at a tree trunk or a stage curtain waiting to be pulled back. The ground rumbles again. Sand avalanches in tiny rivulets around your knees. The trunk pushes upward another meter, this time smoother, more confident, like it's remembering what it used to be. You mutter, this thing's growing faster than a middle schooler after their first energy drink. The boy snorts, then adds, and twice as moody. You can't help but laugh at that, because moody feels right. The whole night feels like it's watching you with one raised eyebrow, waiting for your next bad joke. Somewhere behind you, waves slap rhythmically, steady as breathing. The stars, high above, look closer now. tugged downward by the sheer audacity of this new trunk climbing into their territory. And you think of another night, this one in 1969, when astronauts set foot on the moon and looked back at Earth like a blue marble. That event is known by everyone, carved into history textbooks, a moment of upward reach that rewrote what humans thought possible. Watching this tree, you get the same shiver. Something's reaching where it shouldn't, and you're both awed and a little concerned about the property damage. The boy, lying back in the sand like this is just another Tuesday, says, "Want to know a secret?" You sigh, already suspicious. Do I get a choice? Not really. Coconut trees used to be storytellers. Each trunk ring was a line of a tale, only nobody could read them anymore. You frown. That's not in any botany book I've read. Historians still debate whether the first navigators carried coconuts for food, for water, or just because they liked traveling with gossip. The trunk continues to rise, bending slightly, testing balance like a dancer stretching before a performance. It isn't just wood. It's memory and mischief bound into one vertical surge. The sand around its base sinks lower, as roots tug deeper, pulling up faint glimmers of pottery shards, smooth bones, an old adze blade flashing moonlight. For a second, you wonder if the past is being exhumed, not by archaeologists with brushes, but by a tree with a sense of drama. You step closer despite yourself, resting one palm near the trunk without making contact. The air here is warmer, buzzing, as if the tree exudes static. You whisper, "Okay, I admit it, you're impressive." The trunk creaks in reply, or maybe laughs. Hard to tell. The boy leans on his elbow. "It heard you." "Great. Add tree. Whisperer to my resume." Right after professional coconut babysitter. Above, fronds start to unfold, their undersides catching moonlight like polished metal. Each leaf lets out a faint hiss, like steam escaping. The sound blends with the hiss of waves, until the whole shoreline feels like one long breath in and out. You remember another time, London's Great Fire in 1666, when entire rows of houses went up in flames because sparks leapt from roof to roof. That's widely remembered. But here's a lesser-known detail. Some people claimed they heard the fire roar like a living creature, not just crackle. Standing under this growing trunk, you get why they said that. Sometimes nature doesn't just happen, it performs. The trunk keeps swelling upward and you begin to feel smaller. Not metaphorically, but physically, as if gravity itself is bending to make the tree taller while you sink. The boy yawns, clearly less concerned than you, and says, "It'll stop once it touches the sky." You blink. "Excuse me, what?" "Don't worry, that's just how it grows. Sky first, fruit later." "Yeah, that's not reassuring. Neither is life." He grins again, the kind of grin that suggests he's having too much fun at your expense. The bark glimmers, patterns glowing faintly blue now, like phosphorescence on wet stone. You smell brine, fresh resin, and faintly, smoke from the feasts, dying embers behind you. It's an odd cocktail, part forest, part ocean, part bonfire, and somehow all of it belongs. You lower yourself to the sand because your knees need a break from pretending you're comfortable with myth on fast forward. The tree doesn't slow. It keeps rising, pulling shadows upward with it, reshaping the beach into a stage where you're the smallest extra in the cast. The boy finally sits up, brushing sand off his arms. It's almost ready. For what? To choose the rest of its body. You stare at the trunk climbing toward the moon. This isn't the rest of its body? He laughs, and the sound mingles with the rustle of leaves like applause you didn't earn. The trunk lets out another deep groan, and in it you hear echoes of paddles hitting water, drums calling out voyages and voices singing across centuries. Your chest tightens, not unpleasantly, more like the kind of ache you get when you realize you're standing in front of something way bigger than your personal bubble. The night has become thick, almost syrupy. Every star feels closer, every wave louder, every grain of sand under your palm sharper. You half expect the horizon itself to fold upward, like a page turning. And as the trunk rises, you can't shake the thought that maybe it isn't just growing up. Maybe it's pulling you with it, rewriting your height in mythic proportion. You glance at your own shadow, long and strange on the sand, and wonder whether you'll recognize yourself when this night is done. The boy, voice softer now, says, "Don't be afraid. It's always taller before it bends. You nod, though. You're not sure what that means. The trunk shivers again, bark splitting in a long crack, light spilling from the seam like dawn arriving too early. You shield your eyes even as your breath catches, because whatever comes next, it feels less like a tree growing and more like a story deciding it's not finished with you. And that's where you leave it, perched between awe and unease, as the trunk reaches upward toward a sky that suddenly seems too close, foreshadowing the first stirrings of crown and fruit waiting to arrive. You lean back in the sand, still catching your breath from the last absurd round of trunk expansion, when the night shifts gears again. At first it's subtle, the faintest creak overhead, like the sound of an old library chair complaining, as someone sits down too hard. Then it multiplies. Leaves, broad and shimmering, unfurl one after the other, flicking open with the confidence of stage curtains. Each new frond slaps the air like it's auditioning for a role in a wind orchestra, and before long the entire crown of the tree is awake, restless, almost too alive. You hear it before you feel it. The hush of air moves from nothing into something, threads of breeze tangling into strands of current. The leaves catch it greedily. You've never realized how loud leaves can be when they agree to work together, like hundreds of paper fans, clapping in slow motion, or a room full of people flipping open laptops at the same time. Except these leaves don't settle. They tug at the air, bend it, fold it, as though the sky itself has become origami in their hands. You sniff, expecting plain salt air, but no. The smell is sharper now, green, medicinal, with hints of pepper and some citrus rind. It's the kind of scent that would make a perfume ad too weird for primetime television. The boy wrinkles his nose, rubs at it, then mutters, "It's chewing." The wind. You blink at him. Trees don't chew, you protest. This one does. And honestly, given the night you've had, you're not in the best position to argue. The first real gust knocks your hair sideways, salt sticking in stray strands. The leaves whip in rhythm, not randomly, but almost like choreography. One branch swoops down low, sweeping the sand in a gesture that feels intentional. Another snaps back so violently you half expect it to fling itself into the sea. The wind funnels, spirals, then bursts outward. Sand skitters, a few forgotten shells clatter like dice. You draw your knees to your chest, feeling grit collect, in the cuffs of your pants. It's not uncomfortable, though. It's oddly reassuring, like being pulled into a storm that knows your name. Overhead, moonlight slices through the canopy. Each leaf reflects silver on one side, a deep green-black on the other. As they tilt and twist, the contrast blinks like 1,000 tiny signals. Morse code, semaphore flags. Take your pick. It feels like the tree is trying to broadcast. You whisper to the boy, "What's it saying?" He shrugs, deadpan. He shrugs. Probably something like, "Look at me, I'm fabulous." You snort, but the idea doesn't feel wrong. The showmanship is undeniable. There's a moment when the air thickens, heavy as wet laundry. The temperature drops a notch. Goosebumps prickle your arms, not just from chill, but from the uncanny sensation that the tree is stirring something more than wind. The sound shifts again. Rustling leaves give way to tones, as though the wind has become an instrument. High notes whistle past your ears. Low booms resonate in your chest. For a fleeting second you think of cathedrals, of pipe organs swelling so full they rattle the ribs of the building itself. You mutter, "It's like the tree enrolled in music school," the boy answers, "and it skipped straight to graduation." Somewhere, in the swirl, you hear laughter again. Not cruel, not entirely kind either, just the kind of laughter that knows more than you do. Trickster's fingerprint in the air. You tilt your head back, half expecting to see a face in the canopy, but only leaves stare down, glittering with dew and attitude. You remember suddenly that history has heard this sound before. In 1588, when the Spanish Armada faced the English, fleet chroniclers spoke of the Protestant wind, storms that shredded sails, sank ships, and tilted the fate of empires. Sailors swore the air itself had taken sides. Listening to the racket above you now, you wonder if maybe they weren't exaggerating. Maybe some ancient tree or restless god really had chewed the wind, spat it back out, and chosen its winner. Historians still debate whether weather alone changed the course of that war, or if divine favor was the unseen hand. Tonight, with this trickster tree turning breezes into symphonies, you lean toward the unseen hand explanation. It feels less lonely that way. The boy points to the far side of the crown, where one branch catches the moonlight just right. It looks like it's holding a blade, a long sickle of brightness ready to cut the sky. That one's aiming, he says. Aiming at what, you ask? Don't know yet. Great. That's comforting. The gusts grow stronger. Your eyes sting, watering from salt and speed. Sand peppers your skin. A sudden snap overhead makes you flinch, convinced a branch has broken, but it's only the sound of two leaves slapping, each other in some leafy high five. You chuckle despite yourself. The boy grins. See? Even the tree's mocking you. Fantastic, you reply, brushing sand from your face, bullied by a houseplant with ambitions. A fresh wave of scent rolls through, sweet this time, almost coconut milk simmering with caramel. Your stomach growls embarrassingly loud. The boy raises an eyebrow. Don't even start, you warn. He doesn't, but the smirk is enough. The wind funnels tighter, narrowing like it wants to become a column. For a dizzy instant, you picture a tornado sprouting here, yanking the stars down like marbles. But instead, the current seems to thread itself into the leaves. Each frond hums, vibrating. The whole tree quivers with pent-up energy, not unlike a dog about to shake water all over you. You brace instinctively and then release. The canopy exhales. Leaves snap outward, flinging droplets of dew in every direction. One lands on your cheek, cold as meltwater. Another rolls down your wrist, leaving a faint tingle like soda fizz. The boy wipes one from his chin and mutters, "Refreshing, but 0 stars on Yelp." The ground under you responds too. The sand shifts, not collapsing but swelling, as though the wind has convinced it to breathe along. Shells pop up, tumble, rebury themselves. You hear faint clinks, echoes of pottery, pieces dragged up earlier. The whole shoreline feels like an instrument, every grain vibrating in sympathy with the canopy above. A flicker of memory brushes you. In ancient China, during the Han Dynasty, musicians once experimented with enormous wind harps stretched across temple roofs. The idea was to let the gods play directly through the air, their fingers invisible. Reports claim that during storms, the sound could shake people to tears or trance. Historians still debate if those accounts are metaphor or fact, but standing here with this trickster tree turning night into its personal orchestra pit, you're inclined to believe every word. The boy shouts over the noise, "It's pulling. Something down." You squint, following his gaze. Above the highest branches, the air itself seems to ripple. Not clouds. Those are distant, but closer, as if the canopy has hooked a thread of the sky and is reeling it in. The shimmer looks liquid, silver poured too slowly. It drips toward the leaves, caught in their edges, until each frond glows faintly, like lanterns coated in moonlight. Your breath catches. The leaves don't just rustle now, they shine. The whole tree gleams like it's been dusted with stars, and every time the wind surges, the shimmer bends, arcs, flashes across the beach. You think of northern lights, except horizontal, hanging, just above your head, close enough to touch if you dared climb. The boy whispers, almost reverent, "It's weaving the wind." Into what, you ask? But he doesn't answer. Maybe he doesn't know. Maybe you're not supposed to know yet. All you can do is sit there, sand sticking to your arms, hair wild, eyes wide, as the trickster tree shakes the night like a blanket and gathers every stray gust into its crown. Each leaf is a hand, each hand is clutching a thread. And together, they're pulling the story upward, higher, louder, stranger, towards something that waits just beyond your sight. You feel it in your chest, the way you sometimes feel a storm before it breaks. That pressure, that tingle, the reminder that the world has layers you rarely notice. You hug your knees tighter, whispering mostly to yourself, "This is only the beginning, isn't it?" The leaves answer with another chorus of rustling laughter, a reminder that whatever comes next will not ask for your permission. And above you, the wind gathers once more, preparing to twist into something new. The first thing you notice is the silence after the storm of leaves. Not complete silence, no, the tree refuses to give you that. But a pause, a lull, the kind of breath you take before announcing the punchline of a joke. The canopy that just Moments ago slapped and shimmered now hangs in a tense stillness. The air is cooler, damp against your cheeks, carrying the aftertaste of salt and caramel. You feel like the audience at an outdoor concert waiting for the encore, except the band is a tree, and you're not sure if you want the next song. You tilt your head upward. Between the restless leaves, shapes begin to swell. At first, they're nothing but knots, little bulges where stem meets branch, but then they stretch, droop, and round out into something heavier. The moonlight sticks to their surfaces, glossy and pale. You squint, then whisper, "Is it fruiting?" The boy answers without hesitation, "Of course, tricksters always leave something behind. Usually trouble," you mutter. "Same thing," he replies, straight-faced, which earns him your best glare. The first fruit drops lower, pendulous, swaying in the wind's leftover rhythm. It looks faintly like a head. Not a human head, thank goodness, but the suggestion is there. Round, weighted, almost smirking with its shine. You shift uneasily. Fruit should not look like it has opinions. A scent follows. Sweet, milky, thick enough to cling in your nose. Coconut, you realize, the obvious, the expected. And yet layered within you catch hints of something stranger. Smoke, wet stone, even the metallic tang of coins. You rub your fingers together, half convinced you'll find change stuck to your skin again. The boy catches your expression and laughs. "You think it smells like pennies too?" You nod, sheepish. "Good. Thought it was just me." The fruits grow quickly, too quickly. Within minutes, branches sag under their weight, bowing, like they're rehearsing some royal greeting. You've seen time-lapse videos of apples ripening on a tree, sped up, sped through, unnatural but fascinating. This feels like that, except no fast-forward button exists. The pace is real, and it's ridiculous. One fruit plumps audibly with a squeak that sounds like someone inflating a pool toy. You can't help it. You laugh, shoulders shaking, the absurdity too much. The boy smirks. "Don't mock. They can hear you." "Great," you reply. Haunted fruit. Just what I needed. Another gust stirs the canopy, and the fruits clack gently against each other. The sound is wooden, hollow, but oddly resonant, like drums waiting. For hands. You lean into it, heartbeat syncing with the rhythm. It feels ancient, familiar in a way you can't name. Maybe it's in your bones, some memory inherited from ancestors who sat beneath other strange trees. And then, as though on cue, history drifts into your thoughts. In 1492, when Columbus stumbled into islands he swore were the Indies, coconuts were among the treasures noted by sailors. They carried them back, praising the fruit as both food and vessel, hard shell turned cup, fiber turned rope. That one voyage changed the fruit's geography forever, scattering it across oceans and continents. You think of that as you watch these fruits dangle, gleaming in borrowed moonlight, as if reminding you that exploration always leaves seeds behind, whether you ask for them or not. The boy points to one particularly large fruit, hanging so low it almost brushes your head. "That one's laughing," he says. You freeze, studying it. He's right, the ridges, the shadows, the little dents in its husk, they form a grin, wide and smug. You whisper, "That's unsettling." He shrugs. "Welcome to the club." You don't know whether to laugh or cry. Instead, you reach up cautiously, fingertips brushing the husk. Warm. Not just sun-warmed, alive warm. A pulse seems to beat faintly beneath the shell. You yank your hand back. "Nope, nope, nope, nope," the boy chuckles. "Told you not to mock." You glare again, but your heart won't slow. The fruit is breathing, or maybe you're imagining it. Either way, your skin tingles. A sudden thump makes you jump. One fruit drops, landing in the sand with a heavy puff. It doesn't crack. Instead, it wobbles, rolls in a small circle, then stills. You and the boy stare at it. Neither of you moves. Finally, he whispers, "Well, go on, pick it up." Why? Me, because you look gullible. You groan, unbelievable. But he's not wrong. Against your better judgment, you crawl forward, scoop the fruit into your lap. It's heavier than you expect, almost stubborn in your hands. The husk smells stronger here, like burnt sugar and ocean brine. For a wild second, You picture cracking it open to find not milk, but laughter pouring out, liquid laughter, fizzing and impossible. You shiver. The boy leans closer. It's his heart, you know, tricksters. You glance up sharply. You're kidding. He shakes his head. No one ever eats this fruit without swallowing a piece of him. You put the coconut back down, very carefully. Yeah, that's a hard pass. The wind stirs again, rattling branches. More fruit drops thud, puff, roll, until the sand is dotted with them. Some glow faintly, reflecting moonlight in halos. Others seem darker, shadows pooled too deep. Together, they look less like food and more like eggs, waiting to hatch. Your stomach knots, and then you remember another story, far away from this beach. In World War II, coconuts saved lives. Soldiers stranded on Pacific islands carved messages into the shells, sending them by native canoe or even tossing them into the sea, hoping currents would deliver them to rescue. One famous coconut carried a message from John F. Kennedy's patrol crew after their boat was sunk. It brought help, and the shell was later kept on his desk in the Oval Office. A fruit of survival, a trickster's gift turned lifeline. You wonder if the ones rolling around your feet tonight might carry messages too, though you'd prefer they not involve presidents or wars. The boy nudges one fruit with his toe. It rocks, then steadies, almost glaring at him. He grins. See? Told you they're listening. Listening or judging, you ask? Both, he says. Definitely both. You sit back, hugging your knees again, watching the pile grow. Each fruit hums faintly, a low vibration you feel more than hear. The air thickens with scent. Coconut cream, charred wood, rain-soaked earth, it's dizzying. Your skin prickles and your mouth goes dry, even though all this talk of coconuts should make you thirsty. You whisper half to yourself, "This isn't food, it's a story." The boy nods. Exactly. A fruit is just a seed wrapped in a dare. And you realize he's right. These aren't just fruits, they're trickster's dare, dropped into your lap, daring you to open, to taste, to carry his story further. The thought makes you shiver again. Around you, the night seems to bend. The stars, above, shimmer, as though the tree has hooked them too. The wind softens, but the laughter lingers, woven into every rustle of leaves, every creak of wood. You feel caught between awe and unease, between hunger and dread. You murmur, "What happens if we open one?" The boy grins, teeth flashing in the moonlight. Guess we find out. And with that, the fruits glow brighter, as if they've been waiting for the question. The coconuts, or whatever they are, keep glowing faintly in the sand like lanterns dropped too early into a festival night. You lean forward, your knees prickled with grit, and realize the air itself has grown heavier, as if every breath now tastes faintly of copper pennies and roasted sugar. You roll one fruit in your hands, its husk smooth but strangely warm, and the boy watches you with that same mischievous smile. "Don't squeeze it too hard," he says. "Why will it explode?" You mutter, half joking. He tilts his head. Maybe. Or maybe it'll sing. You freeze because with this tree, either answer seems perfectly reasonable. The others keep rolling out across the beach, bouncing like marbles let loose by some unseen hand, and the villagers who have been drifting closer stop in their tracks. A hush spreads through the crowd, the kind of silence you only hear right before a school play goes terribly wrong, or right before fireworks misfire. The glow from the fruits intensifies, illuminating their faces in gold and shadow, every wrinkle, and scar-etched with strange reverence. It feels like the entire shoreline has become an audience, and the fruit in your lap is the main performer. Someone whispers behind you, "It's the trickster's wonder." The phrase ripples through the crowd, repeated like gossip at a family wedding, swelling into a chant. The boy grins wider, clearly enjoying how the coconut, or whatever it is, has just been promoted from snack to sacred artifact. You're tempted to laugh, but the fruit's pulse against your palm is not joking at all. The smell shifts again. No longer coconut, no longer caramel, but something close to burning cedar mixed with seaweed left too long in the sun. A strange perfume that makes you dizzy, like stepping into an antique shop where every shelf groans with incense burners, old coins, and too many memories trapped in jars. The villagers begin laying the glowing fruits in a circle on the sand, arranging them carefully, as if setting a stage. The glow reflects off their eyes, and suddenly, everyone looks like they've swallowed stars. "Why a circle?" you whisper. The boy shrugs. Because every story ends up round. You can't tell if he's being profound or just recycling something. He heard in a fortune cookie. The fruits throb in unison now, a steady rhythm that syncs with the ocean's hush. It's oddly comforting, like the world's weirdest lullaby, but also unsettling because the ground beneath your palms feels alive, vibrating as if the sand itself is humming. One old woman, stooped and wrapped in sea-worn cloth, shuffles forward. She raises a hand and places it gently on one of the fruits. The glow leaps higher, bursting across the circle like sparks chasing each other in a firework wheel. The villagers gasp, then laugh nervously. "This is absurd," you mutter, even though you can't look away. The boy leans closer. "Absurd is just another word for miracle you weren't expecting." Great. Now he sounds like a motivational speaker. Still, you admit it. You're captivated. The fruits begin splitting, not with a crack, but with a sigh, as though exhaling after a long nap. The husks part slowly, petals unfurling like metallic flowers. Inside, not white flesh, not milk, but light. Pure, liquid light. It flows and shimmers, pooling in the husks, spilling a glow across the sand. The crowd gasps again, then falls to their knees. You hear sandals scuff, beads rattle, voices whisper in awe. "They think it's divine, you say, isn't it?" the boy replies. You roll your eyes, but your skin prickles with goosebumps. The light in the fruits keeps pulsing. In it, you swear you see shapes, boats sailing, fires burning, faces turning toward the sky, flickers of history. And suddenly you're reminded of another crowd long ago staring at the sky in wonder. You recall the famous solar eclipse during the reign of Thales, when two warring armies, the Lydians and the Medes, simply dropped their weapons because the sun vanished. Imagine, mid-swing with your sword, and you just stop because the sky decided to cancel your fight. That's the kind of awe you're seeing here. But you're also reminded of stranger moments, like when entire villages once believed comets, carried disease, or when certain Pacific islanders read stars and waves with such skill they could cross entire oceans without compasses. Lesser-known fact, some Polynesian navigators even trained by lying flat in canoes, feeling the water's motion through their bones. Looking at these glowing fruits, you half believe this tree has simply sprouted its own navigation system. Historians still debate, you murmur, whether awe makes people wiser or just easier to fool. The boy chuckles. Both. Usually both. The villagers are murmuring louder now, their voices swelling. A man raises one fruit above his head, its glow pouring over his arms. The crowd cheers like he's just scored a goal in the World Cup. "There's wild, you say. It's just Tuesday." The boy replies. You snort. At least he's consistent, but the air grows hotter, a sticky warmth that makes sweat bead on your neck. The fruit's light flares, almost too bright to stare at. You squint, shielding your eyes, and realize the villagers are beginning to sway. Their movements are small at first, gentle rocking like reeds in water. But soon they are circling, chanting softly, their feet kicking up sprays of sand. The sound rises. A rhythm forms, not unlike a drum line, but mixed with the whisper of surf and the sigh of the fruits. It's hypnotic, and you feel your own body leaning forward, wanting to join in. "Don't fight it," the boy says. "It's rude to ignore an invitation." "An invitation to what?" you ask. He only smiles, because of course he does. The villagers' chanting blends into song now, high voices weaving with low ones, their words lost but their meaning clear. Wonder, gratitude, fear. The fruits respond, flaring with every chorus, dimming with every breath. The air smells of salt, smoke, and something strangely sweet, like cinnamon on wet stone. Your ears buzz. The sand beneath you seems to pulse. And then, one fruit bursts. Not violently, but with a soft pop, scattering sparks that drift like fireflies. The villagers gasp again, then laugh, reaching up as if to catch the sparks in their hands. They dissolve on contact, leaving faint streaks of gold on skin. You hold your breath, watching as the sparks drift toward you, glowing like tiny lanterns. One lands on your wrist. For an instant, you swear you hear laughter. Light, distant, familiar. The boy's eyes glimmer. Trickster shares what people need most. Tonight, it seems, they needed wonder. You stare at your glowing wrist, feeling the echo of laughter seep into your bones. The circle of fruits shimmers brighter, every husk blooming open, every pool of light spilling stories into the night. Villagers dance, their shadows huge against the dunes. You feel like you're in the middle of an ancient painting, a scene someone would one day try to record in pigment and ink, only to argue centuries later about what it really meant. Your head swims. The fruit's light grows warmer, softer, wrapping the entire beach in a golden haze. It feels like the world has paused, suspended between myth and morning. And just when you think the wonder has peaked, the boy nudges you. Look. Closer, you do. And in the shimmering light, you see not just faces of villagers, but outlines of people you don't recognize. Figures stepping from the glow, fleeting, half-formed, as though the fruits are peeling open the seams of time itself. The villagers gasp, bow, and stretch their arms wide, voices trembling in awe. You can't decide if you should laugh, cry, or ask for a refund. Instead, you whisper, "What comes after wonder?" The boy's grin sharpens, the part people rarely expect. And as the last sparks rise into the sky, you know the next step is already waiting, just beyond the circle of light. The circle of light finally dims, not vanishing but softening into something less blinding, more intimate. The villagers begin drifting back from the shimmering fruits and toward the fire pits dug hastily into the sand. Flames crackle, licking, driftwood with orange tongues, sparks trailing into the thick night air. The ocean keeps its hush behind you, a giant breathing in the dark. The smell shifts once more, this time simpler, kinder. Smoke, charred palm fronds, and the faint sweetness of roasting fish. After all that glowing wonder, a little wood smoke feels like a friend. You sink into the sand near the fire, heat brushing against your face, the backs of your arms still damp with night air. The boy plops down beside you, his grin now softer, as if the performance is over and it's time for the after-party. Villagers gather close, some still clutching half-empty husks that glow faintly like lanterns about to fade. "They'll tell stories now," the boy says. "Stories about the fruits?" you ask. "Stories about everything," he replies. "Fruits are just the excuse." And sure enough, the old woman who first touched the glowing coconut leans forward, her wrinkled hands raised toward the fire. Shadows deepen in her lines. She begins in a low, steady voice, a hum more than speech. Others quiet instantly, the way kids hush when the teacher takes out candy. You don't understand every word, but the rhythm pulls you in. You catch fragments. A man chasing the horizon until it chased him back. A turtle carrying islands on its back. A storm that fell in love with a mountain and refused to leave. The fire pops loudly and you almost laugh. It sounds like the fire is heckling her. The boy elbows you. "Don't giggle, that's disrespectful." "It's not me, it's the wood," you protest. He smirks. The wood disagrees. Another villager, a young man with a scarred cheek, takes over. His voice is quicker, sharper, like he's sprinting through his own memory. He talks about warriors tricked by glowing fruits into chasing shadows, only to find their enemies gone when dawn came. His story sounds suspiciously like he's describing last week's fishing trip, except with more drama. You lean closer to the fire. Sparks land in the sand with tiny hisses. The smell of char grips your nose, layered with salt. The warmth lulls your muscles, but your mind stays alert, hooked by the rise and fall of voices. Then it happens. Someone brings you into the story. A middle-aged woman points at you, eyes twinkling, and rattles off a sentence that makes the others laugh. "What did she say?" you whisper. The boy grins. "She said the foreigner is Trickster's cousin, same hair." You blink. "I don't even have leaves," he shrugs. Details. The laughter folds you in, not unkindly, and for a moment, you're part of the circle, not just an outsider watching. Another log collapses in the fire, embers tumbling like spilled jewels. The sparks rise and someone gasps, not at the fire, but at what they see above it. You squint, and yes, there's something odd in the smoke. Shapes coil upward, faint but visible. Boats rocking, animals running, a man in a wide hat bowing. Toward the sea. The boy whispers, "Every flame tells its own version." which you think is exactly the kind of thing he'd say when he has no explanation. But then you remember real history, and the way people once gathered around firelight to share stories of things they couldn't prove, but felt too important to lose. Think of the Greek poets reciting epics long before ink caught the words, or the Norse skalds, shaping sagas in smoky halls while snow battered the roofs. Fireside storytelling is probably older than bread, older than farming. Maybe the sparks above this beach are just a reminder. The first theatre was flames and shadows, and you can't help recalling that other fire, London's Great Fire in 1666, when the whole city became its own legend overnight. A blaze so enormous it turned wooden houses into cinders and baked clay roof tiles until they popped. People fled with whatever they could carry, even cheese wheels bigger than their heads. Widely known, yes, but hearing these villagers tonight, you realize fire has always been two things: destroyer and archivist. It burns the body but keeps the story. The scarred young man speaks again, this time about a trickster who stole fish from gods by pretending to be a bird. The fire flares at his punchline as if in applause. Everyone chuckles. You can't help but compare it to modern stand-up comedy, just with more feathers and divine theft. You whisper, "So basically Trickster invented open mic night?" The boy laughs. "Don't tell them. They'll start charging admission." Later, another elder steps forward, her voice raspy but commanding. She talks about nights when stars fell like rain and villagers caught them in jars, only to find them gone by morning. She swears the jars still glow faintly, hidden in caves. Historians still debate whether meteors were always interpreted as omens, or if sometimes they were just, well, space rocks. But sitting here, you can see how the difference hardly mattered. What mattered was the wonder people carried home. The fire grows hotter, sweat beads on your brow, but the sea breeze cools your back. The contrast keeps you teetering between comfort and edge, like someone adjusting the thermostat every 30 seconds. The boy picks up a glowing husk, now dim, and tilts it toward the flames. It catches briefly, burning green, then collapsing into ash. "See," he says, "stories don't last forever, but while they burn, they shine. You finish." Exactly. The villagers nod approvingly, as though you've passed some unspoken test. The night deepens, crickets chirp. The fire's smoke drifts upward, snagging the stars. The smell of roasted fish grows stronger as someone unwraps leaves, handing portions around. You take a bite. The flesh is smoky, salty, flaky, and surprisingly tender. You close your eyes, and for a moment you forget the glowing fruits, the shimmering figures, the sense of unease. You're just here, by firelight, eating with strangers who feel like family. Then the old woman begins again. This time her story is darker. She speaks of a fire too large to be contained, a blaze that swept across villages, devouring everything. Her words grow heavy, and the villagers bow their heads. You think of Rome, flames licking through streets, while Emperor Nero allegedly fiddled. Not true, but the image endures because it feels right. Fire reshapes memory as much as it reshapes wood. The woman's tale ends not in despair, but with rebuilding. New houses, new songs, new children born under smoky skies. And the fire in front of you crackles as if agreeing. The boy leans in. Legends are just warnings dressed as bedtime stories. You nod, though you're not sure if you'll sleep after this. The fire burns lower, embers glowing like a bed of stars. The villagers hum softly, a closing song, their voices weaving with the surf. You feel the weight of centuries folding into this one night, the way flames preserve stories even as they eat the wood. You rest your hands on the sand, warm from the fire, cool from the breeze, your skin still tingling with leftover sparks from earlier. And as your eyes grow heavy, you realize the stories aren't done. They're simply pausing, waiting for the next listener to lean closer, because the fire never really goes out. You wander farther from the fire pits, where smoke still lingers like a shawl over the sand. The laughter fades behind you, though every now and then another punchline about your cousin the trickster drifts on the breeze. The shoreline glimmers under a silver rinse of moonlight, but here at the edge of the gathering, you notice something else. A tree oddly alone, rising right out of the sand near where the tide keeps brushing up and pulling back, as though the ocean itself can't decide whether to claim it or let it be. The trunk twists upward like a corkscrew, if corkscrews were, designed by someone drunk on geometry, and its leaves spread wide, catching light in ways that make you wonder if moonlight secretly prefers plants over people. At its roots, the sand has been pushed aside, revealing a tangle like enormous veins, as if the tree has one foot in land and the other in the sea. You get the sense that this is not just a tree. It feels older than the laughter you just left. Behind, a man notices you staring. He walks over, carrying what looks like the stump of a roasted fish, crunching on the tail as casually as someone eating chips. He says, mouth half full, "You see it too, don't you? The way it leans like it's listening." You nod because honestly, he's right. The tree does look like it's bending toward the ocean, like it's waiting for gossip only waves can tell. He chuckles, tossing the fishbone into the surf where it disappears with a hiss. My grandmother said that trees' roots drink stories. Every tide pulls them in. Storms, shipwrecks, love letters written on driftwood, even the occasional shopping list. She said the tree grows fat on words. You ask, half joking, "So, if I whisper my secrets, it'll remember them forever?" He grins. "Forever? No, but longer than your friends will, I promise you that." The two of you stand there, listening to the rhythm of the tide slapping the shore, like someone drumming with a broken metronome. It's uneven but persistent, and it fits. A sudden gust of wind sways the branches, and you catch a salty tang, sharper than before, as if the ocean is leaning closer to hear what you might say. The air cools, brushing over your cheeks, while sand grains sneak into your sandals like tiny spies. Someone behind you sneezes from the smoke, and the sound gets swallowed instantly by the waves. The man wipes his mouth, then gestures broadly. "See, once, long ago, this was where our ancestors stood after the sea threw up a ship." His voice lowers, like he's trying not to wake the fish still dozing in tidal pools. A big ship, wooden ribs cracked open like someone had stepped on a toy. Inside, people crawling out, coughing salt, eyes wide like owls. Survivors. He lets that word hang there, as if it has to breathe too. You imagine it, sailors stumbling into this very sand, collapsing under the same tree. Their boots squelching, their hands gripping bark, their mouths probably cursing Neptune or Poseidon, depending on which mythological mood they were in that century. Was it a famous ship? You ask, fishing for details. "Not famous," he says, chewing on the memory, but the people carried strange maps, stars drawn in spirals, sea routes marked with ink that smelled like tar. My grandmother said that's when this village learned to look upward, not just outward, to read the sky. And there it is, the little historical breadcrumb you half expected. He doesn't give you dates, but the story slots itself into that broad pattern of oceanic discovery. People always washed ashore somewhere, bringing both trouble and ideas, like the Vikings stumbling into North America, or the Polynesians plotting entire worlds across endless water with nothing but stars and courage. You're reminded that in 1492, Columbus sailed west, famously discovering lands already bustling with life. Yet here, too, other less famous ships cracked open, their stories slipping into new routes and memories. You touch the tree's bark. It's rough, ridged like old knuckles, but warm under your palm as if it's been storing the day's heat. You swear it hums faintly, like a seashell pressed to your ear, except lower, deeper, like an unending exhale. The man notices your hand. "Careful," he says. "It might take your words before you mean to give them." You pull your hand back, brushing sand off your fingers. What happens if it takes them? Then they sink. Into the roots, into the ocean. They don't come back. A pause stretches between you, filled with the slap of another wave. Then, because silence feels like an invitation, you say, "Sounds like social media." Post once, it's gone forever. Somewhere under a digital tide. He laughs, loud enough that someone near the fire calls out, "What's so funny?" He yells back, "This stranger thinks the tree is Instagram," which earns another round of laughter drifting through the night. You roll your eyes, but secretly you're glad you said it. The branches shiver again, leaves flicking silver sparks. Under the moonlight, you notice one leaf, larger than the rest, curled like a hand about to toss dice. It drops suddenly, spinning down until it lands in the sand. When you bend to pick it up, it feels unnaturally heavy, like it's waterlogged. Even though it just fell, the man peers over your shoulder. That's how it starts, he mutters. You raise an eyebrow. How what starts? Visions, dreams, you keep that leaf under your pillow, you'll see the ocean from the inside. Fish-eye view. Scary stuff if you can't swim. Convenient, you say. I was running low on nightmare fuel. Still, you slip the leaf into your pocket, mostly because you're curious. It smells faintly of brine and wood smoke, like both the sea and the fire are fighting for territory. Further down the beach, a group of kids run shrieking through the foam, their silhouettes like darting shadows, their laughter chasing gulls into the dark. The gulls retaliate by screaming, a sound that never fails to remind you of a malfunctioning alarm clock. The ocean itself seems endless tonight, a sheet of mercury reflecting stars. The tide pulls back, revealing slick stones and crabs scuttling, like nervous accountants. Every so often a wave crashes louder than expected, spraying your shins with cold water sharp enough to reset your brain. And then, you hear singing. It's faint, carried over the waves, not from the fire. A high, wavering tone like a whistle played on the edge of glass. You tilt your head, trying to catch it. The man hears it too. His eyes widen. He whispers, "That's her." Who? The one the tree listens for. Before you can ask further, another voice joins the first, then another. Soon a layered chorus floats across the water, too coordinated to be coincidence, too eerie to be casual. The sound seeps into your bones, vibrates against your ribs, makes you want to step closer to the tide, even though instinct screams stay. "Back, mermaids," you blurt, half mocking, half hopeful. The man smirks. "Close, but our stories say they're the ocean's daughters. They don't live in the water, they are the water. If you listen long enough, you start to understand them." Understand what? That the ocean doesn't end. It just hides the rest. The singing grows louder, though the waves keep crashing, refusing to be upstaged. You realize your own breathing has fallen into rhythm with the tide. In, out, as though you're caught in rehearsal for a role you didn't audition for. Someone else approaches. A woman, older, her hair braided with shells that clink softly as she moves. She stops by the tree, resting one hand against its trunk. "You shouldn't listen too long," she tells you firmly. The man grins at her. "Scaring them already?" "I'm warning them," she replies. Then she looks at you. "The songs aren't for you. They're for the tree, for the ocean. You're just eavesdropping." You ask, "What happens if I keep listening?" She shrugs. "Maybe you dream. Maybe you walk into the water and never come back." Historians still debate whether those who disappeared followed the voices or drowned, chasing them. You blink. "Historians debate that?" She smirks. "Of course. Historians debate everything. Even what color the tree's leaves used to be." Her tone makes you chuckle, though the weight of her words lingers. You step back slightly, sand shifting under your heels, as if putting physical distance might protect you from melodies that already seep under your skin. You sit down on the sand near the tree, trying to anchor yourself. The grains are cool, damp, clinging to your palms. Overhead, stars stretch in dizzying numbers, constellations you half recognize but can't quite place. The Big Dipper, maybe, or just another kitchen utensil drawn across the sky. The man sits too, pulling his knees up. Once, a storm tore this beach apart. Waves taller than houses. Villagers tied themselves to the tree, held on while roofs flew. Boats shattered. When it was over, only this tree stood exactly as before. Everything else had changed. The woman nods. The tree remembers. That's why we tell stories here, not just to each other, but to it. Because one day, when we're gone, the tree will whisper them back. It's an unusual thought, that history isn't stored in books or scrolls alone, but in bark and root. You think of the Library of Alexandria, burned and mourned, so much knowledge turned to smoke. And then you think, maybe some of it slipped. Away into trees like this, carried across seas, planted again, hidden in roots that drink salt and secrets. The fire circle is distant now, though you can still see sparks leap up whenever someone throws another log. You feel caught between two worlds, warmth and stories on one side, oceanic songs and the listening tree on the other. Your stomach growls quietly. Apparently roasted fish wasn't quite enough, and the man laughs again. "Don't worry, the tree doesn't eat people, at least not often." "Comforting," you mutter. The woman shakes her head. "Stop teasing. It doesn't eat people. It eats time. And that lands heavier than you expect. You look at the twisting trunk again, suddenly unsure whether its corkscrew shape is natural or sculpted by centuries inhaling hours like air. The songs on the ocean fade, replaced by the softer hush of waves. The man stretches, yawns dramatically, then says, "Well, cousin of the trickster, welcome to the circle of listeners. Careful what you share. The ocean is patient. The tree even more so." The woman gathers her shell-braided hair over her shoulder, adds quietly, "When dawn comes, you'll see. The tide will leave gifts at the roots. Driftwood carved by no hand, stones shaped into animals. Proof the ocean was here, whispering all night." You look again at the roots, tangled veins gripping both land and sea. You feel the leaf heavy in your pocket, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat not your own. The fire crackles behind you, the waves breathe before you, and the tree listens, always listens. You lean back into the sand, close your eyes for a moment. The air is cooler now, carrying both smoke and salt, weaving them together until you can't tell where land ends and water begins. You sense that tonight isn't about answers. It's about being allowed to overhear, about realizing the ocean's voice doesn't need you, but it doesn't mind if you pause to listen. Somewhere far off, gulls cry again, breaking the trance. The woman pats the tree trunk once, firmly, as if ending a conversation only she can hear. Then she says, almost to herself, "Tomorrow it will ask again." Her words drift with the breeze, but you tuck them away. Because you know the next section of your journey waits, and it will not be on shore. You stay near the tree longer than you expect, your back pressed into the sand until the grains mold themselves around you like an improvised mattress. The moon tilts higher, clouds stretch like lazy smoke, and the waves roll in with a patience that seems older than everything else. Somewhere behind you, the last laughter around the fire has softened to murmurs, then to silence, as if the entire village has exhaled together and agreed that the night has done enough. The leaf in your pocket grows heavier. You pull it out just to check that it hasn't turned into a brick, and it glimmers faintly, a wet sheen as though it just climbed out of the tide. You hold it against your chest and realize that your own heartbeat is sinking with its faint thrum. You laugh under your breath. Of course, because what I really needed tonight was a plant-based pacemaker. And that's when you hear him, voice sharp, amused, but warm enough to pass for an old friend. "Cousin." You blink into the shadows. No one there. Just the tree, its roots spread like veins, and the ocean whispering against the shore. Again, clearer this time. "Cousin, you didn't think we'd let you leave without a family reunion, did you?" The sand under you shifts, though no one is walking near. Instead, it feels like the tide is pulling the ground sideways. The air cools, and the smoke from the far fire bends toward you, as if the night itself is leaning in. And then he arrives. Not stepping exactly, but unfolding out of the shimmer between branches and waves. The trickster. You know it's him, instantly, because he looks half like everyone you've met tonight, and half like a reflection in a cracked mirror. His grin is wide enough to store secrets, and his hair seems to flicker between leaves and flames, depending on where you glance. "You've done well," he says, settling onto the sand like a cat who has just claimed the best chair. Usually, people trip over their own shoelaces long before they make it this far. But he pokes your shoulder, solid as driftwood. You survived the fish, the fire, the songs, not bad. You can't help yourself. "Thanks, I'll add it to my resume. Professional survivor of imaginary vacations." He laughs, clapping once, the sound like two stones striking. "Perfect, you get it, you're one of us." The trickster leans back on his elbows, staring up at the moon. His voice softens. "You've noticed it, haven't you? The way the night is stitched together. The way stories climb like vines, tangling truth and joke until no one knows which is which." You nod, though you add, "Yeah, but to be fair, that also describes every group chat I've ever been in." He snorts, waves a hand, and suddenly your view of the stars swirls, the constellations bending like they're rearranging themselves, just for the performance. You watch Orion trip into Cassiopeia's chair, the Big Dipper pour itself into the sea, and a string of stars shape into a giant spoon that promptly snaps in half. See? The trickster says, grinning. The universe is just as clumsy as we are. The air grows warmer for a moment, as if the sand itself is sighing under your body. A faint smell of charred wood drifts over, then salt, then something sharper, like ink freshly ground on stone. You glance down and realize the trickster is tracing shapes into the sand with his finger. Spirals, arrows, lines that mimic the old maps the survivor once carried. You know, he says casually, the Polynesians crossed the Pacific with nothing but stars and stories. No GPS, no phones, no Google Maps shouting, recalculating, just memory, rhythm, and faith that the ocean could be spoken to. He looks at you sideways. And it worked. Imagine that. You say, yeah, but try telling that to someone. Who panics when their phone battery drops to 2%? He grins. That's the point. Fear is easy. Trust takes practice. The trickster shifts again, and suddenly you're not on the beach anymore. You're somewhere between waking and sleeping, where the sand has turned into cloud. The ocean has folded itself into mist, and the tree rises impossibly tall, its roots dripping stars instead of seawater. You look down, startled, but your body is light as if made of driftwood, hollowed out by waves. The trickster walks beside you, unbothered. Don't worry, it's just a dream or a trick or both. Same thing, really. He gestures toward the tree whose branches now stretch into infinity, weaving constellations like necklaces. This is where stories live when no one's awake, to tell them. The sound here is uncanny. Not quite silence, not quite song. Like a choir humming underwater, layered with the crackle of old fires. You smell resin, salt, and something sweet, almost like figs drying in the sun. The temperature keeps shifting. Cool breeze, then warm glow, as though the dream can't settle on a season. Tell me something, the trickster says. What do you think stories are for? You shrug. To explain stuff. To entertain. To pass the time. Wrong, he says cheerfully. They're to confuse historians. You burst out laughing, but he waves you quiet. No, listen. Stories are anchors. Ships may break, fires may burn, but anchors sink deep. They keep places from drifting away. He points to one of the roots glowing faintly. Inside it, you see flickers, people huddled in ancient villages, voices rising in chants, sailors sketching spirals on bark, children drawing stick figures in dust, moments preserved not in stone but in telling. Alexander the Great once marched across Asia, right? The trickster asks suddenly. You blink at the leap in topic. Yeah. Conqueror of the known world, giant ego, the whole deal. Exactly. He built cities, tore others down. But what stuck? His stories. The ones told around fires, whispered in markets, exaggerated until he was taller than mountains and faster than storms. Historians still debate how much is true, but the tales, they anchored. He smirks. Meanwhile, the lesser-known fact, one of his generals tried to make soldiers drink wine mixed with seawater, thought it would last longer. Spoiler, it didn't. Half the camp got sick and the story vanished, except here. He taps the glowing root. Saved for later. You shake your head. Wine with seawater. That's not history, that's college. He cackles, delighted. The dream swells again. You're drifting upward, carried by the hum of unseen voices. The trickster now balances casually on one of the branches, his body half shadow, half starlight. You're part of it now, he says. You came here, you listened. That's all it takes. You want to argue, to say you were just passing through, but the truth is, you don't. Because part of you already feels woven in, like sand stuck between the pages of a book. Then, out of nowhere, the trickster cups his hands and shouts toward the void. Cousin can't dance. From the branches above, laughter rains down, actual laughter, dripping like water, each drop rippling in the sand cloud beneath you. You groan. Seriously? Even in dreams? He grins. Especially in dreams. What else are they for? The air cools again, and you smell roasted fish, though faint, like a memory reheated. You hear waves rolling somewhere, even though the beach is gone. The sounds layer. The fire, the ocean, the laughter, like three tracks looping over one. Another. The trickster leans close, voice quieter. You'll wake soon, But remember, when you tell this, don't worry about truth. Worry about rhythm. Worry about warmth. The rest takes care of itself. You feel yourself sinking gently, the hay. Dream folding back into the reel. The sand returns under your palms. The ocean is there again, sliding against the shore. The tree rises over you, no longer dripping stars, just leaves whispering in the breeze. The fire is only embers now, a faint glow behind the dunes. The leaf rests on your chest, lighter now, ordinary. You press it between your palms, you whisper, "Thanks, cousin." Somewhere in the rustle of branches, laughter answers you. Quick, sly, affectionate. Then silence. The night is almost over. The moon slides lower, the tide leaves behind its gifts, driftwood shaped like animals, shells glinting like coins, stones, smoothed into strange faces. The woman's prediction holds true. You rise slowly, brushing sand from your arms, and watch dawn stain the horizon pale. Cool air shifts warmer. The ocean still breathes steadily, but softer now, as if even it is, ready for rest. Behind you, the tree stands as it always has, corkscrew trunk and tangled roots unbothered. It will listen again tomorrow. You take one last breath of salt air, smoke, and fading night. Then you smile. Because in some small way, you know the trickster was right. You've joined the story, and now it can join you in sleep. Your eyes feel heavier. The fire's warmth lingers like an afterthought. The ocean hushes like a lullaby. The trees' whispers blur into background hum. Everything folds into quiet, patient dark. So rest, cousin. Let the tide carry you. Let the trickster laugh for you. Let the story hold you until morning. End of script. Sweet dreams.